Chapter 1461. In the camp of the Allied forces, Diwu Qingru was waiting. Waiting for the enemy to attack. There was a calm smile on his face. No matter which camp the enemy attacked, he would react immediately. The arrangements he had made beforehand would also be put to use immediately. Diwu Qingru had enough confidence to resolve the battle that the enemy had deliberately planned this time. And he would definitely not let the enemy gain too much of an advantage. Mo Tianji, you cut off half of my benefits last time. This time, if you aren't greedy, I will cut off half of your benefits too. If you are greedy, I will leave all these people here. Kill them all. Right at this moment, a sharp and long howl came from the front. It was a tragic howl that sounded as if someone's throat had been torn apart. Enemy attack. Diwu Qingru raised his head abruptly. For the first time, there was surprise in his eyes. Then, from the left and right in front of him came roaring battle cries. It actually came from the direction of the Chen clan and Ling clan that were in charge of the ambush, and not here that he had planned for a long time. Diwu Qingru's expression changed. He immediately shouted, "Send the order. Yi clan, Zhuge clan, Xiao clan. The 4 clans are to move out immediately. Reinforce the Chen clan and Ling clan with all their might." Yes. Lan Morfeng immediately gave the order. Diwu Qingru looked ahead with a cold and sharp gaze. Feeling the tremors under his feet, his heart tightened. He had been tricked. And this time, Diwu Qingru was sincerely convinced. He had deployed for a long time, but all of them were in the air. The enemy had no intention of attacking the camp at all. Right from the start, it was a plan to lure the snake out of its hole. The enemy had seen through his deployment and guessed his plan. Then, the enemy's real target was the 2 ambushing armies that he had deployed outside to trap the enemy. The Ling clan, the Chen clan. They had used their own team as bait. They had used the accurate intelligence of the Allied forces' intelligence personnel to set up a trap and used his habits of using troops to guess his plans. Then, they had used their superior military strength and a thunderous attack to deal with his ambush. Mo Tianji's use of troops was actually so strange. Diwu Qingru's eyes were deep and sharp. He murmured, "Mo Tianji. So your plan was to take down my ambush. Is this a warning?" On the left and right, the 4 teams had already shot out like lightning. Diwu Qingru had already made preparations for the attack. Therefore, this attack was extremely fast. Diwu Qingru's face was as calm as water as he looked ahead. The sound from afar suddenly grew louder, like a tsunami. At the same time, there were countless snowflakes, ice cubes, rocks, and trees. Like the Big Bang of the universe, it suddenly shot up into the sky with a loud bang. With a loud boom, some of the tents on this side suddenly jumped up from the ground. It landed crookedly. This is definitely not 200 or 300 people. Could it be that the Li clan has come out in full force? Diwu Qingru's gaze flickered. He said, "Send out the flag signal." Oh, no, pass down the order directly. Flag signals were meant to be used when the enemy attacked the camp, and at this moment. The sky was filled with snow, and at such a distance, flag signals were useless. Everyone, charge. The law enforcers cut in from the right. If we can block their path of retreat, we might be able to wipe out the Li clan today. Yes. The Shi family should rush over and join forces with the Yi and Xiao families. We must hold the enemy back. Yes. The Lan family doesn't need to protect me. Immediately cut in from the left toward the northwest. Even if we have to vomit blood, we must cut off their path of retreat. Yes. Another 3 teams rushed up like lightning. Beside Diwu Qingru, there were only 2 second-grade supreme martial artists left. They were under the Dharma Supreme's orders to protect Diwu Qingru's safety and not leave his side. "You dare to come out in full force, so do I." Diwu Qingru said calmly, "I dare to fight, but you don't. In this battle, what I lose is just some prestige and benefits that I'm about to get, but what you lose is your foundation. This time, is the entire Li clan participating in the battle?" One of the shadows asked. "Definitely." Diwu Qingru shook his head and smiled. "I really didn't expect that the master of calculation and manipulation Mo Tianji, who is rumored to be cautious by nature, would make such a shocking move this time. I fell behind in this battle and didn't see through the enemy, so I lost this time. Even if these people are really surrounded and annihilated here, I've also lost this time. Mo Tianji, you're amazing. Diwu Qingru looked ahead and paid attention to the voices coming from the front. He was judging the situation in his heart, but he was sincerely praising Mo Tianji. Since the Li clan is taking such a risk, isn't this a great opportunity for us? Should we, the people in the dark, join in the battle? One of the shadows asked Diwu Qingru. Diwu Qingru was about to speak when he suddenly paused and said, "No need to join in the battle. During this period of time, there have been many people on your side exerting pressure on our side. If any of them are recognized, the consequences are not something that can be compensated by the destruction of the Li clan, which is already at death's door." The two shadows nodded and didn't speak anymore. Diwu Qingru was absolutely right. In a battle between supreme martial artists, there were basically divine sense imprints. Especially supreme martial artists who had experienced the danger of death, they would be very sensitive to the aura of their enemies. In an intense battle, no one would be able to control that kind of aura freely. If these people were to join in the battle, the possibility of being recognized was more than half. But now, even if there was only a 1/10 chance, Diwu Qingru couldn't take the risk. Once he was recognized, it would mean that Diwu Qingru would have nowhere to hide. All his previous efforts would go down the drain. "Let's go," Diwu Qingru said. "I'm already late. If we don't want to lose too much in this battle, I have to take command personally. If the battle isn't over by the time I arrive, so what if I'm late?" The two shadows carried Diwu Qingru and flew forward. At this moment, Mo Tianji had already carved a warrior's hairpin for the head. With the last slash, this head carved out of ice and snow actually seemed to come alive. For a moment, a refined aura suddenly emerged. The hair, beard, and skin of this head seemed to become like a real person. Ao Xieyun and Rui Biyu Tong were just about to see who he was carving when Mo Tianji turned his wrist and kept the head in his sleeve. He reached out and grabbed, and an icicle suddenly rose from the ground. He circulated his energy and solidified it at the same time. It was as hard as gold and stone. The battle in the distance had only lasted for a few minutes. They could faintly hear someone shouting, "The reinforcements haven't arrived. Retreat first. Retreat first." Mo Tianji heard it clearly. It was Chen Jianlong's voice that day. Speaking of which, the Chen clan was really unlucky. Their mounts were more or less affected in such a world of ice and snow. Furthermore, if the gale beast stayed in the snow for a long period of time, their eyes would be affected and they wouldn't be able to see clearly. Therefore, they all stayed in the campsite. They specially made a tent for them to rest. If they were all here at this moment, their strength would be boosted even further. Their battle prowess would also increase by 20%. Although the enemy had an overwhelming advantage in terms of numbers, and it was a sneak attack, they wouldn't have been killed so miserably in just one exchange. In the worst-case scenario, the heavily injured could still escape. But now, there was no such convenience at all. Less than half of the Ling clan and Chen clan members were left desperately trying to break out and retreat rapidly. The Li clan members didn't give chase but retreated immediately. They galloped towards the northwest. The two groups of people who were fighting fervently actually parted ways at the same time. One group fled towards the south. The other retreated towards the north. With a swoosh, the distance between them was pulled apart. Almost at this moment, the reinforcements from the south also suddenly appeared in the snowstorm. They flew over like the wind and their voices were thunderous. Li Wubua. Li Wubua didn't make a sound. Following the retreat of the main group, he was like a gust of snow dust that drifted with the wind. Behind him, the Yi clan and the other three super clans chased after them at full speed, their momentum soaring. Mo Tianji frowned and said indifferently, "1. Ao Xieyun howled into the sky, awu tilde 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 awu tilde tilde tilde." His voice was strong and powerful, shooting straight into the sky and exploding everywhere like a thunderbolt. When the Li clan members who were retreating heard this sound that was either a wolf's howl or a dragon's roar, they turned around and attacked in unison. But everyone was cursing in their hearts. What the heck? Wasn't it supposed to be a dragon's roar? They didn't hear a damn dragon's roar. Instead, they heard a lewd male wolf's roar that seemed to be in heat. How fucking creepy. Yi Xiaoyao's eyes flickered. He shouted, 10 people rush to that small slope and see who's commanding. Take him down at all cost. Before he finished his words, 10 experts had already pounced forward at lightning speed. The remaining people quickly clashed with the Li clan members who had turned around to fight. The experts of the Yi clan, Xiao clan, Zhuge clan, and the other 4 super clans instantly fell into a tough battle. The remaining experts of the Chen clan and Ling clan who had just escaped also pounced back one after another without caring about their injuries. The battle was about to reach a stalemate. Under such circumstances, the Li clan was almost destined to be completely annihilated. Kill. Right at this moment, there was a sudden roar. Countless snow-white Li clan members who had been recuperating flew out from the left and right like divine soldiers descending from the heavens. Before they landed, they had already started their killing moves. First, densely packed hidden weapons shot out with a swoosh. Instantly, the whole sky turned into a bright blue color. Tens of thousands of hidden weapons poured down from the sky, the ground, front, back, left and right towards the people who were fighting in this chaotic battle. It was a completely indiscriminate attack, as if they wanted to shoot down their own people who were mixed with the enemy viciously. According to Mo Tianji's arrangement, out of the 10 teams, only one had participated in the attack previously. The other 4 teams were put to use at this moment, and they were used to determine the outcome of the battle. The hidden weapons are poisonous. Be careful not to get pierced by them, Xiao Zhangyang shouted angrily. Hearing the swoosh sounds of the hidden weapons and seeing that shocking color, Xiao Zhangyang almost ground all his teeth into pieces. Despicable and shameless. Yi Xiaoyaro almost vomited blood. Li Wubo, is this the glorious means of your super clans? I am ashamed to be in the same team as you. However, no one answered him. The Li clan members who had just started the chaotic battle clenched their teeth neatly at this moment. They crushed a mouthful of antidote pills and swallowed them, assimilating them into their blood vessels. They didn't dodge the blue hidden weapons at all and charged towards the enemy even more recklessly. Today is the birthday of the book friend Mu Baijin Alliance leader. Happy birthday to him. Every year, there will be a day like this. Chapter 1462. The sudden attack was too sudden, especially to the Alliance army. The fact that the other party could send 500 people here to ambush them was already far beyond their expectations. A tragic battle to the death was expected by almost everyone. But they never expected that the other party would actually leave a reserve team in such a situation, and from the looks of it, there were really quite a lot of them. This was completely out of his expectations. And the reserve team used hidden weapons right from the start. Everyone threw out countless hidden weapons in the blink of an eye. The hidden weapons were too sudden and too concentrated. Attacking indiscriminately in a chaotic battlefield, that kind of power was definitely impressive. The Alliance army could only deal with the opponent's reckless attacks on one hand and conjure up streaks of sword light to block the hidden weapons on the other hand. They didn't dare to dodge. There were people in front and behind them. Who knew whose blade they would end up under if they dodged? It was still okay if they were on the same side, but if it was the enemy, wouldn't that be like delivering food to the enemy? And it was delivered to their mouths by the best service. The clanging sounds were mixed with painful cries and irritated shouts. Obviously, many people had already been hit. The hidden weapons landed on the people from both sides quickly and fiercely. Everyone was a super expert with strong cultivation. These hidden weapons that had already dispersed their power couldn't be fatal at all. Even against low-level supreme martial artists, they could only scratch a little of the skin and couldn't enter the body any further. But just this little bit of skin and flesh would cause the flesh to turn blue, and the poison spread rapidly. Everyone felt their bodies go numb. The Li clan people were also hit by the hidden weapons. The cut skin and flesh on their bodies turned blue in an instant, but then the color changed immediately. The antidote immediately showed its effect, and the blood turned red. The poison was immediately neutralized. On one hand, it was a little numb, but on the other hand, it was fine. Although the poison was strong and could kill ordinary people, to supreme martial artists, it wasn't fatal. At most, it would numb them for a moment, and they would return to normal in the next moment. However, in a battlefield that was constantly changing, this period of numbness was beneficial for both sides. It was enough. The Li clan people's counterattack was swift and fierce. Firstly, the indiscriminate attacks from both sides were very powerful. Secondly, they had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. Thirdly, some high-level supreme martial artists couldn't even use some big moves in such a chaotic battle, for fear of accidentally hurting their own people. At this moment, the Li clan people really dominated. Just like that, the curtains of this massacre suddenly opened. Blade after blade, sword after sword, streaks of bright red blood with a hint of blue shot up into the sky. And before the hidden weapons started to fall, the large group of Li clan clansmen who were releasing hidden weapons from both sides had already charged into the battle. All of them became one with their swords, and instantly, dazzling light pillars and light balls covered in sparks of electricity wreaked havoc everywhere. Screams rang out one after another. At this moment, in the face of the Li clan's attack, the allied forces of the four great clans had actually been forced into a complete disadvantage. This phenomenon. Yi Xiaoyaro and Xiao Zhengyang were so angry that their stomachs almost burst. Then, together with Ao Xieyun and Rui Butong, they escaped into the wind and snow like lightning, disappearing without a trace. If Diwu Qingru had been slower at the beginning, he would have been slower. Mo Tianji chuckled. His voice floated in the white snow, slow down by a beat. That's the winning hand. The Tenyi clan experts rushed to the slope and only saw a straight snow pillar. On the snow pillar, there was a lifelike human head. On the snow pillar, there were a few lines of elegant handwriting. They couldn't help but look at each other. Fight! Yi Xiaoyaro shouted. Xiao Zhengyang sent the Li clan experts who were attacking him flying and gave the order to attack from all sides. Although many low-level supreme martial artists and martial saints died because they were caught off guard, there weren't many high-level supreme martial artists. Figures flashed in the distance, and there were also people rushing over from both sides. A long shout came from afar. Go! With that one word, everyone from the Li clan suddenly gave up on the fight. Some of them even took a direct hit and turned to leave. They left cleanly and without any hesitation. Mo Tianji's second change didn't work in the end. Seeing the three groups of people in the distance, Mo Tianji immediately knew that Diwu Qingru had made the right decision. So, he immediately ordered a retreat. Only the 10th group was able to withstand Li Xiongtu's slash. With a loud bang, they were sent flying backwards by the recoil. Li Ju, who was beside him, suddenly staggered and almost fell to the ground. Li Xiongtu was shocked and reached out to grab him. He saw Li Ju spit out a mouthful of blood on Li Xiongtu's face. Li Xiongtu only felt his vision blur. He grabbed Li Ju and was about to fly away. Li Ju panted. Xiongtu. You. Li Xiongtu said, there's no time. Go. Li Ju panted. He wanted to say something, but suddenly his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Li Xiongtu was shocked. The enemies behind had already caught up. He shouted, catch him. He shook his hand and threw Li Ju out like a cannonball. But because of this throw, he slowed down. The sound of a golden blade cutting through the air could be heard. Behind him, there were people taking deep breaths. That was the prelude to a powerful air-splitting palm. Li Ju, who was flying out, had a strange look of pride on his face. He secretly activated his cultivation and landed in his own camp as light as a feather. Then, he started to run. Li Xiongtu was watching with concern. He was stunned when he saw this. But this was because the enemies behind him had already caught up. He roared and swung his broad sword backward. With a bang, it clashed with two swords. The two people opposite him didn't expect him to have such innate strength. At the same time, their bodies cracked and blood flowed out of their 7 orifices. Li Xiongtu roared and spat out a mouthful of blood. He staggered a few steps and cut down a second-grade supreme martial artist who came close. Then, he dragged his long sword and retreated like a gust of wind. With a swoosh, the space was torn apart. A strong wind from a palm hit Li Xiongtu's back crazily. Li Xiongtu let out a ferocious roar. Without any reluctance, he threw out the broadsword in his hand. With a whoosh, it brought out a magnificent golden radiance. It cut out a clear black hole in the space and shot towards the palm wind, and he himself pushed out with both palms. Boom! Li Xiongtu used the force to fly up. His majestic body bent in the wind and snow and flew out 70 to 80 feet. He flew backward and spat out blood. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Li Xiongtu was the last person of the Li clan to retreat. Although he was seriously injured, he didn't seem to be affected at all. He ran wildly. Every step he took, he covered a distance of hundreds of feet. His speed was almost beyond the limit, causing the pursuers behind him to continuously throw out their palms. Countless hidden weapons, swords, and sabers were directly thrown, whistling through the air, but they all missed. Yi Xiaoyao and Xiao Zhengyang were furious. Leave. How could it be so easy? You want to leave after killing so many of us? If we let you go, we will be idiots. We have to catch up even if we have to risk our lives. Yi Xiaoyao roared angrily. Together with Xiao Zhengyang, they chased after the Li clan. In the wind and snow, a group of people in front ran with all their might while some people behind ran with all their might. Between the two groups, Li Xiongtu was running with all his might. There were so many people of the Li clan in front of him, but none of them looked back. Li Xiongtu only felt that his chest was about to explode. His pride didn't allow him to ask for help, but he was puzzled. Everyone saw that he saved Li Ju just now. Why was it that when others fell behind, someone would immediately pull them to catch up, but when he was so far behind, he didn't even look back? Li Ju ran so fast after he landed. Why? Li Xiongtu was straightforward, honest, and heroic, but he was definitely not an idiot. Li Xiongtu ran with all his might, but he felt a chill in his heart. I tried to repay the Li clan wholeheartedly, but the Li clan really treated me like this. Thinking of Mo Tianji's sneer, haha, repay the Li clan? Repay. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a feeling of discouragement rose in his heart. Could it be that I was really being used? Could it be that I was really being used, and that I have to give up after being used? Then what am I? Li Xiongtu considered. Li Xiongtu felt that Li Jupan's blood had almost covered his eyes. Li Xiongtu let out a low roar, and fiercely spurted out his vital energy. The blood on his eyes had already turned into dregs. He smiled bitterly. Li Ju obviously wasn't injured that badly. That blood was obviously spat on my eyes on purpose. There was a reason why everyone in the Li clan ignored me when I was in a life and death situation. For a moment, endless sarcasm rose in Li Xiongtu's heart. Sarcasm towards himself. Even the desire to escape had almost disappeared. If that girl in white was not waiting for him in his courtyard, at this moment, he would probably give up, right? Li Xiongtu smiled bitterly in his heart. Thinking of that gentle face, he didn't know where a fierce force came from under his feet. His speed suddenly increased a little. The pursuers were getting closer and closer. The four high-level supreme martial artists took the lead and were about to catch up with Li Xiongtu. After passing through a valley, the entire mountain suddenly collapsed with a loud rumble. Large rocks smashed into the faces of the experts of the allied forces. At the same time, a majestic voice came from the mountain, all attack. Kill. The voice was like gold and iron, sonorous and powerful. Experts. They didn't expect the Li clan to have a third team waiting here. Where did the Li clan get such a strong force? The Li clan members in front shouted in unison. The rhythm was the same as the previous time. Yi Xiaoyao was startled. Xiao Zhengyang was also startled. They immediately stopped and activated their martial arts vigorously, waiting for the enemy. Diwu Qingrou's urgent order came from afar, don't stop. Chase and kill. Don't lose them. But it was this pause that caused the whole mountain to crash down with an earth-shattering momentum. It hit the top of their heads. Chapter 1463. If the supreme martial artists wanted to chase after them, They would still be able to get through even if they had to risk being hit by the stones a few times. However, this was not a good feeling after all, and there were not many people who could get through. If the other party really had an ambush, these people would not be optimistic either. Therefore, although Yi Xiaoyaro and Xiao Zhengyang heard Diwu Qingrou's shout, they still slowed down by a beat. Since the two of them had stopped in their tracks, the others naturally stopped as well. It was just that they were slow by a beat. The whole mountain had collapsed, and the snow and dust were flying all over the sky, rushing thousands of feet into the sky. They could faintly see Li Xiongtu, who was in front, being hit by the stones and running away with his head full of bruises. The Li clan's team was completely isolated behind the collapsed mountain and could not be seen at all. Xiao Zhangyang and Yi Xiaoyaro roared at the same time. Both of them raised their forearms at the same time, and with a sound, two huge palms suddenly bombarded upward. The power of two 8th-grade supreme martial artists working together was simply earth-shattering. Diwu Qingrou's urgent voice came. Don't hit forward. Push straight up to the sky. When Diwu Qingrou's urgent shout came, the four huge palms of Yi Xiaoyaro and Xiao Zhengyang had already formed and slapped out with a boom. They wanted to retract it, but it was too late. The stones of the whole mountain were lifted up by the two at the same time, like pillars supporting the sky, and flew towards the opposite side at a faster speed than falling down. Diwu Qingrou sighed and stopped in his tracks. It's over. If it wasn't for this, in the case of an open field of vision, a second-grade supreme martial artist could still keep the other party in check. But now, it was completely hopeless. This should be the best countermeasure, a shadow beside him asked doubtfully. Diwu Qingrou sighed. The stupidest way is right. How can mere stones kill a supreme martial artist? And when these stones fall to the ground, the mountain will shake and the earth will shake. The snow and dust will cover thousands of miles. By then, it will be as difficult as ascending to the sky to find the other party's trace. If we push them up, we can go through the tunnel. We'll be able to pass under the rocks. When the time comes, we'll have a wide field of vision. The only obstacle will be the snow and dust created by the enemy. That's our goal. Even if they split up, as long as we can catch up to one of them, we'll be able to wipe out at least 1/3 of them and weaken them greatly. In this situation, we can only give up temporarily and act according to the circumstances. Diwu Qingru was somewhat depressed in his heart. He hadn't expected that Mo Tianji wouldn't even give him a chance to confront him head-on. While speaking. On the other side, the sky was indeed filled with snow and dust. Pu, the ground was littered with exploding bombs. Within a radius of several thousand feet, the sky was filled with snow and dust. No matter how good his eyesight was, he couldn't see anything. Yi Xiaoyaro and Xiao Zhengyang knew that they were in trouble. He immediately used all of his strength to blow away the snow and dust in the air. But when he looked around, there was no trace of the enemy. All that was left in front of his eyes was silvery white. The two of them were dejected. Hide yourselves and bide your time, Diwu Qingru ordered in a soft voice. His eyes were full of confidence, since he has come out on a large scale. There was no way he would be satisfied with just killing 200 or 300 people. So, he must have some follow-up plans in the near future. As long as we are sure that he is still here, we will not fight him directly. We will immediately rush to destroy the Li clan's base camp. Diwu Qingru said softly. There was a strange feeling in his heart. This was the first time in Diwu Qingru's life that he had been defeated in terms of intelligence. Excluding Chu Yang in the lower three heavens, Diwu Qingru didn't think that he had lost in everything in the lower three heavens. Even if he had lost to destiny. And in the end, Diwu Qingru didn't work hard at all. Chu Yang succeeded, but Diwu Qingru also succeeded. It was at that time that the blood-colored fate entered the Diwu clan. Only then did the Diwu clan slowly have the opportunity to become stronger in the upper three heavens, just like the opportunity now. So, Diwu Qingru didn't think that he had lost. Compared to the goal of his ancestors, he could even say that he had won. But today, he had really fallen into someone else's trap. What made Diwu Qingru feel the most defeated was that the enemy had completely figured out every step of his plan. This feeling was indescribable. It wasn't dejection or sadness. Instead, it had turned into a monstrous fighting spirit. Since that's the case, I'll have a good fight with you. Since my backup plan could be seen through, it means that I still have flaws in the way I use troops. You've reminded me of my weakness. I'll pay attention in the future. Thank you, Mo Tianji. However, Diwu Qingru firmly believed that Mo Tianji's objective wasn't as simple as it seemed since he had launched such a big operation. He had mobilized all his forces and rushed for thousands of miles. He definitely wouldn't retreat just like that. If it were him, he wouldn't be satisfied either. So, he waited. And he could afford to wait. At this moment, a few people flew to Diwu Qingru. Commander-in-Chief Diwu, the other party's military advisor left a gift for you. Gift? Diwu Qingru's eyes lit up. What gift? It's this. That person smiled bitterly and took out an item. It was a straight snow pillar. It was as thick as a person's and as tall as a normal person's. It stood upright. At the top of the snow pillar, there was a head carved out of ice and snow. At this moment, Diwu Qingru, Yi Xiaoyao, Xiao Zhengyang, Chen Jianlong and the others were collectively stunned. At first glance, this head was carved out of ice and snow. Moreover, it was the kind of snowball that only melted a little bit of ice on the outside but still had snow on the inside. That was why it was so light. However, this person's carving was uncanny and could be said to have reached perfection. Regardless of whether it was the facial features or the 7 apertures of the head, they were all vivid and lifelike. Even the pupils in the eyes were clearly visible. The beard on the chin seemed to be fluttering in the wind. The hair on the head seemed to be meticulously trimmed. The most incredible thing was that this head looked like it was made of ice and snow. They were all pieces of ice and snow, but when you saw his face, you would realize that this person was a living person. His eyebrows showed his character, his eyes showed his wisdom, his nose showed his persistence, and his lips showed indifference and decisiveness. His face. When you looked at it like this, it actually looked like a normal person's face. Even his hair gave everyone the impression that it was black. This kind of illusion. Even his eyes were filled with a kind of calm, indifferent, and strategizing expression. From this side, it seemed that the eyes of this head were quietly watching you. It was the same from the other side. It seemed that the eyes of this statue could move. Was this really carved out of a ball of snow? Moreover, no one had seen this face before. However, this head gave everyone an extremely familiar feeling. It was as if everyone knew this person. He was right beside them. Diwu Qingru looked at this head carefully with an appreciative look on his face. He said lightly, so similar, so amazing, so determined, so confident, so interesting. Everyone couldn't help but echo, yes. So similar. But the next moment, everyone looked at each other and was collectively stunned. So similar. But, who did he resemble? Everyone's eyes turned from the ice sculpture head to Diwu Qingru and suddenly realize. So similar. Like. Diwu Qingru. Whether it was the nose, the mouth, or the eyes, this head looked very different from Diwu Qingru. But the kind of aura that was imperceptibly revealed was almost exactly the same as Diwu Qingru's. Although it looked completely different from Diwu Qingru, anyone who had seen Diwu Qingru before would recognize it. Once they saw this head, they would immediately recognize it. This was Diwu Qingru. So calm, so wise, so confident, but also a little cold and indifferent cruelty, and a little awe-inspiring decisiveness. At this moment, everyone's expression changed. Diwu Qingru sighed softly. He has never seen me before. Never. Just from these few exchanges, he was able to guess my temperament and charm. He even specially carved a gift for me, a good gift. Everyone looked at each other in shock. This is the most precious gift I have ever received in my life. Diwu Qingru smiled lightly. One of a kind. This. Commander-in-Chief Diwu, just now you said. So similar, we already understood. But after that, you said so impressive, so determined, so confident, so interesting. What did you mean? Were you referring to the other party? The person who carved this? The genius military advisor of the Li clan, the brain of tribulation? Yi Xiaoyaro asked with some difficulty. Yes. Diwu Qingru smiled softly. His eyes were still looking at this sculpture, as if he couldn't bear to part with it and wanted to remember every line. So impressive, it means that a person who has never seen me before can actually use this sculpture to fully express all my aura. So determined, it means that the other party only used a very short time to carve this thing, and it was done in the middle of a battle. It is impossible to carve such a fine sculpture in the middle of a supreme martial artist's battle if he doesn't have the determination to remain calm even if a mountain collapses in front of him. So confident, it means that when he carved, the battle had already begun. He was the one who commanded the battle, but he didn't care at all. Obviously, he was confident that everything was going according to his expectations. So interesting. Haha. Diwu Qingru looked at this sculpture and smiled lightly. If we have guessed wrongly, the neck of this head was cut off cleanly by someone. One sword cut off the head. As he spoke, he picked up this sculpture and showed the neck without looking at it. Cleanly cut off with one sword. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Next to the battlefield where hundreds and thousands of supreme martial artists were fighting, he carved the aura of an enemy he had never seen before without any distractions, and yet everyone admitted that it was irrefutable. What kind of person was this? Diwu Qingru smiled slightly and waved his sleeves. The snowflakes that had just fallen on the snow pillar flew up, revealing the original body of the pillar. On it, a few words were written in a flamboyant style. Chapter 1464. Diwu Qingru, do I look like you? These few words, this one question, gave rise to a strange feeling in everyone's heart. Although it was a question, there was a sense of certainty. It was as if the master of calculation and manipulation was standing in front of them, looking at them with a smile and saying with confidence, "This is Diwu Qingru." Diwu Qingru looked at these words and gently shook his head. He smiled faintly. Does it look like me? Mo Tianji, are you telling me to read war music? Diwu Qingru's eyes were deep as he murmured, but do you know that this sentence has exposed your weakness? Then, Diwu Qingru ordered lightly, count the casualties and make proper arrangements. All troops advance. Move the original camp 1,000 miles to the front of this mountain. Diwu Qingru had been tricked and suffered a great loss, but he advanced instead of retreating. Diwu Qingru looked at everyone with a smile, but he had his own thoughts. You mean to warn me to have a sense of propriety when fighting with you? But if I really have a sense of propriety with you, then when your wings are fully grown, I will only be the commander-in-chief, and the Diwu clan will be far from being formed. What's the use of that? Besides, if I have a sense of propriety, won't the battle of the top sages in my Leduo land be impossible? So I know your intentions, but I must defeat you. Commander-in-chief, the casualty statistics are out. Yi Xiaoyao's voice was a little heavy. How is it? The losses are great. The death toll is 200. 15 are seriously injured and 84 are lightly injured. It's almost equivalent to the allied forces of the three clans being crippled. Fortunately, the high-level supreme martial artists are not injured. But the bottom forces are almost wiped out. The bottom forces that Yi Xiaoyaro was talking about were the saint-level experts below the supreme martial artist level. Now, those saint-level experts who were once looked up to were now at the bottom. It had to be said that this was a kind of irony. How are the casualties? Diwu Qingru asked calmly. I'm afraid, there are no more than 50. Yi Xiaoyaro sighed deeply. It's too sudden. It was so sudden that they were caught completely off guard. The Chen family and Ling family were basically unprepared and half of them were wiped out. Sigh. Diwu Qingru remained silent. He said, this is my mistake. The enemy guessed all of my reactions correctly, resulting in my defeat. Very much so. Xiao Zheng said, how can you blame the commander-in-chief? It's mainly because that little guy is too cunning. Diwu Qingru solemnly said, an incompetent general will exhaust 1,000 soldiers to death. As the person in charge, I have to shoulder the responsibility. If I shirk the responsibility, then I, Diwu Qingru, will not be qualified to lead the army. The people of the Li clan fled with all their might without stopping. They didn't know how far they had gone either. They only followed Mo Tianji's instructions and changed their formations continuously. After doing this 3 times, he finally saw the wind and snow in front of him. Mo Tianji stood there with a smile on his face. Now, everyone was looking at Mo Tianji. It was as if he had seen an immortal. How is it? Very satisfying. Everyone laughed. Well, let me tell you what we should do next, eh? Mo Tianji laughed out loud. He was about to say something when he suddenly turned his gaze, and his complexion turned ice-cold. He shouted, "Where's Li Xiongtu?" Everyone's expression changed. Li Wubo looked around and seemed to have only just realized that Li Xiongtu wasn't around. He couldn't help but turn pale with fright. With a panicked look, he shouted, "Where's Xiongtu? Who saw him? Tell me quickly." The pale and dying Li Ju stood up shakily. His eyes were red. Xiongtu. Xiongtu was in the same group as me. But later on, I was injured and was about to be cut into pieces. It was Xiongtu who saved me. My good younger brother, Xiongtu. He fell behind because of me. Li Ju looked up to the sky and cried. He was extremely sorrowful. He cried, "Where is my brother? Xiongtu. Xiongtu. Didn't my brother Xiongtu come back? Oh heavens." Li Ju looked up to the sky and cried. Ao Xieyun and Rui Butong only felt goosebumps all over their bodies. In an instant, they actually broke out in cold sweat. Oh my God, it's such a pity that this Grand Duke Li didn't become an actor. His voice was so full of emotion and his emotions were so real. His tears poured down like rain. Li Xiongtu fell behind because he wanted to save you? Mo Tianji had a strange smile on his face. Li Ju beat his chest and stamped his feet. Yes, yes. My brother. Boo-hoo. If anything happens to my brother, I don't want to live anymore. Yes, Li Xiongtu fell behind because he wanted to save me. With so many high-level supreme martial artists chasing after him, he should be dead. It's best if he's dead, right? If he's dead, he's a hero. I'm a hero's brother. If tribulation needs a replacement, I'm the first choice. There's no doubt about this. As expected, Mo Tianji's expression changed greatly. He stamped his feet. How did Xiongtu? What should we do? Send a few people back to help him immediately. I'll go. Li Ju jumped up. If he's not completely dead, I'll stab him again. No need. A voice said, I'm back. Although the voice was weak, it didn't change its majesty. It was Li Xiongtu's voice. Li Xiongtu. Ao Xieyun and Rui Butong shouted in surprise at the same time. Li Ju was stunned at once. He slowly turned back. Xiongtu. Li Xiongtu's figure appeared from the wind and snow step by step. He was covered in blood and his head was full of bumps. Apart from the injuries, most of them were from being hit by rocks. Brother. Li Ju finally came back to his senses. He shouted, opened his arms and pounced on him in surprise. You're back. Li Xiongtu took a step back and didn't hug him. He looked at Li Ju with a strange gaze. He only felt a complicated and inexplicable feeling rising in his heart. At this moment, he wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. There was also a feeling that he was below the stage. There was a performance on the stage, and he was watching the show below the stage. Watching the show. Ha ha ha. Li Xiongtu suddenly had the urge to laugh out loud in ridicule. Brother, it's me. It's Big Brother. Seeing that Li Xiongtu didn't say anything and had a strange expression, Li Ju was afraid that the other party had already noticed his thoughts. He hurriedly said this. Li Xiongtu nodded. His face flushed red. He was about to speak. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood. He staggered a few steps, lost consciousness, and slowly fell down. He was seriously injured from the bitter battle, and an indescribable mental injury. Li Xiongtu couldn't hold on anymore. The direction he fell in was the direction of Ao Xieyun. He fell down after he fainted. It seemed that it was in his subconscious. Even Ao Xieyun, who used to be his enemy, was more reliable than Li Ju, who called himself Big Brother. Li Ju was about to reach out his hand when Ao Xieyun hurriedly caught him. He quickly circulated his energy and checked his body. Then, he breathed a sigh of relief and said to Li Ju, "Don't worry, he's fine. He won't die." Then, he smiled. "I'll circulate my energy for him again." "Haha, young Master Li. Thank me." Li Ju nodded and thought, "He won't die. That's what worries me the most. What should I thank you for?" "But of course," he said gratefully, "Brother Ao, thank you so much." Ao Xieyun laughed and patted him on the shoulder. "Thank me. You can't just say empty words. You have to be more practical." Of course, of course." Li Ju nodded. He was speechless. "Damn, you saved the person I wanted to kill the most. Now, I have to thank you. And you're trying to extort me. Fuck. What kind of world is this?" At this time, Mo Tianji frowned. He seemed to have heard something and was a little surprised. He said, "Take care of the injured and retreat immediately. Start the operation immediately according to the second variable of the first plan." "Yes." The Li clan members followed Mo Tianji and left. Chu Yang revealed himself and smiled. Just now, he had transmitted a message to Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji was waiting here for Chu Yang's message to get the latest news of the Allied forces. This time, Mo Tianji naturally wanted to do more things. But, except for Diwu Qingru's delay at the beginning, all the responses were flawless. So, Mo Tianji could only retreat for the time being. At this moment, no matter what he did, he would only be caught by the opponent. If the two sides were about the same strength, Mo Tianji would definitely dare to move. But now, the difference was too big. Moreover, the enemy's reinforcements were endless. If he ran out of reinforcements, he would be dead. This was something that couldn't be done. So, after he received Chu Yang's message, he immediately chose to retreat. On the other side, Diwu Qingru had already sent out 2 groups of troops. After the large group turned the mountain pass, they set up camp 50 miles away from the mountain. The simple commander-in-chief's tent. Diwu Qingru was still looking at the head and the snow pillar that he personally moved into the camp. He was deep in thought. Yi Xiao Yarrow and the others were a little confused. "Commander-in-Chief, why do you keep looking at this statue?" Yi Xiao Yarrow was puzzled. Diwu Qingru shook his head and said, "This isn't an ordinary sculpture. It contains many things about Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji's strengths, his weaknesses, his temperament, and his character are all here. Mo Tianji wanted to tell me some of these things. But, there are also some things that this sculpture has told me. If I can't figure it out, then my family will be ruined and my family will die." Everyone's expression suddenly became serious. This small statue was just a prank that Mo Tianji did casually. Could it be that there was more to it? It was related to life and death. "Let me ask you 3 questions. Diwu Qingru said softly. "First question, why did Mo Tianji give me this statue? Second question, what will I think after seeing this statue? What will I do? What does Mo Tianji want me to think? What will I do?" Chapter 1465. Everyone was speechless. None of them were stupid. Even if they were stupid, they would never cultivate to such a high level of martial arts. However, they really couldn't understand these twists and turns, especially the twists and turns that were made by 2 unparalleled military advisors. Everyone knew that even if they thought about it, it would be a waste of time. Moreover, it would leave an impression of them as idiots. It would give their brothers of thousands of years an excuse to mock them and become a negative example for future generations. Therefore, everyone was smart enough not to speak. "You can't guess?" Diwu Qingru asked with a smile. "If we could guess, why would we need you as our military strategist?" Everyone had the same thought in their minds and said in unison, "Please enlighten us, military advisor." His surprise attack this time was unexpected. He took advantage of me. Logically speaking, he should not have left such a head statue. Diwu Qingru's face was somewhat gloomy. It is said that this strategist is not very old. Finally, someone spoke. It was the supreme martial artist of the Ling clan, Ling Zhangkong. Since he is young, He should have the temperament of a young man. Could it be that Mo Tianji took advantage of us in a weak situation and could not help but want to show off? This is the mentality of a villain. It is similar to a pauper suddenly becoming a nouveau riche and showing off his wealth. In this attack, the Ling clan was almost completely wiped out. It was actually the clan that suffered the most losses. Ling Zhangkong hated Mo Tianji to the bone. He did not have any good words to say. Even if I sometimes get carried away and show off, Mo Tianji would not be so shallow. Diwu Qingru was somewhat unhappy. The tone of his words was very heavy. Facing such a terrifying enemy, a little carelessness would cause the entire army to be wiped out. Even if they tried their best, they would still be afraid that they would not be able to cope. Now, there was actually such a weirdo in their team who thought that the other party was showing off. To be honest, this was not the way to court death. Even Jing Menghun would not underestimate any enemy like this. Now, these words came from the mouth of an 8th grade supreme martial artist. It was simply shocking. Ling Zhangkong's face was very ugly. This head of Mo Tianji is telling me that he has seen through some of my things. At the same time, he also gave me something that allowed me to see through him as compensation. Because this time, for me, he thought it was a little unfair. Diwu Qingru indifferently said, "This is the pride of a top military advisor. It has nothing to do with arrogance and conceit. As for whether the one we saw was the real him or not, that's unknown. If I'm right, it's a favor from him, and we don't owe each other anything in the future. If I'm wrong, then it's a series of fatal traps, and there won't be any psychological burden. He's already informed us. We still guessed wrong. This is courting death. How can we blame him? Everyone couldn't understand what was going on. How could there be such a strange thing in this world?" Mo Tianji carved with great care. His emphasis was on the charm. He probably believed that the concept was higher than reality. Every slash of his was just right, but he had control over it with ease. He was very confident. Not a single strand of his hair was out of place. This shows that he is very strict. The last message also shows that Mo Tianji is a person who plans ahead. He never does things that he is not sure of. None of the supreme martial artists were fools. After hearing these words, they naturally had a feeling of realization. As for the next step, I will carefully study it tonight. After all, what we can see now is only the most superficial and superficial things. Diwu Qingru sighed and said. All the supreme martial artists were preoccupied with their own matters, so they didn't mention anything about their own people. Diwu Qingru looked at everyone walking away and sighed deeply. There was one sentence that he did not say. And that was also a very important meaning of Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji carved the human head very accurately, but he did not put any effort into the human body. It was like the face of a peerless beauty growing on a rotten wooden stake. It was particularly incongruous. However, the others obviously did not notice this aspect. Or rather, they noticed it but did not think of it. It was this obvious point that hit Diwu Qingru's heart, and made him sigh continuously. You are a top figure, and the opponent that I, Mo Tianji, value the most. But now you seem to have a lot of people, but you are actually leading a mob. The face of a peerless beauty, but the body is equipped with a cylinder. Isn't it lamentable and lamentable? And what Mo Tianji said was what Diwu Qingru was most helpless about now. His prestige was rising step by step. Even after such a crushing defeat, they did not lose their confidence in him. Diwu Qingru could see this point. But the biggest drawback had not been removed. That was, although his prestige was rising, these people were still people of their own clans. No one had power that truly belonged to them. Moreover, Mo Tianji also reminded him of Diwu Qingru's situation through this human head. If you continue to fight, slowly, you may be able to complete your leduo. But if you destroy the Li clan now, then what awaits you can only be cooked after the hairs have outlived their usefulness. Diwu Qingru did not want to think about Mo Tianji's psychological tactics, but he had to think about it now. Diwu Qingru looked at the frozen human head on the table for the whole night. He did not use his cultivation to maintain it. When dawn came, The temperature in the tent was still relatively high. The human head began to melt, and the snow pillar also began to melt. Whether it was the once delicate human head or the once rough snow pillar, they all turned into a blurry mass. Diwu Qingru looked and suddenly realized something. He couldn't help but laugh. His worries were all gone. After laughing 3 times, he lay on his side on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. This was the first time he had such a carefree sleep since he came to the northwestern battlefield. This morning, he didn't even think about the Diwu clan at all. For the Diwu Qingru of the past, this was definitely an incredible thing. In the next few days, Diwu Qingru began to attack fiercely. The reinforcements of the Allied forces also began to come continuously at this time. Diwu Qingru increased the number of troops in waves. It was as if he would not stop until he destroyed the Li clan. In the eyes of outsiders, Diwu Qingru was angry that he had been tricked by Mo Tianji. He was holding back his anger and was determined to get back at them. Of course, this was a situation that everyone was happy to see. And it was something that everyone was willing to do. After all, Diwu Qingru was not the only one who was sullen. Everyone was sullen. So everyone in the Allied forces was more cooperative. On the opposite side, Mo Tianji. It was as if he had really started to explain everything. The most urgent morning was to deal with the incoming troops. Mo Tianji issued a total of 118 orders. Every day, there were experts from the Allied forces being carried back from the battlefield. There were also people from the Li clan being carried back. The number of deaths and injuries slowly increased. Then, they became numb and indifferent. If they die, so be it. Maybe the next one will be me. Driven by such thoughts of great enlightenment, everyone's hot-bloodedness slowly died down. What replaced it was the boring killing and being killed. It was obvious how intense the battle ahead was. Everyone had a clear premonition if this continued, the final battle would not be far away. Diwu Qingru's expression became more and more serious in front of others. Mo Tianji's expression also became more and more serious with each passing day. In the eyes of the people on each side, the 2 commanders had also reached the most critical moment of the competition. In the end, even the leaders of the 8 super clans, they didn't dare to speak to Diwu Qingru easily. It was the same for the Li clan. In front of Mo Tianji now, Li Wubo was already as silent as a cicada in winter. Because every moment that passed, he saw the changes that were so complicated that the human brain couldn't handle them. Step by step, Mo Tianji executed them and then against the enemy's arrangements. Then, as the enemy continued to change, Mo Tianji also changed accordingly. Every change made Li Wubo feel ashamed of his inferiority. In the end, Li Wubo even felt that no matter what kind of change it was at any moment, Li Wubo had a thought: without Mo Tianji, the Li clan wouldn't even be able to survive for a while. With such a thought, Li Wubo didn't dare to control Mo Tianji's authority even more. Now, Mo Tianji was already the master of the Li clan, the supreme leader, the number 1 leader. In the beginning, he still had to rely on Li Wubo to issue orders. But in the end, why would those who received the orders still care about whose mouth the orders came from? Mo Tianji's orders? Nonsense. If military advisor Mo didn't issue orders, who would? Both teams were in full swing. That kind of oppressive feeling made even low-grade supreme martial artists feel pressured. They sighed in their sleep at night. Only 2 people secretly rejoiced. Diwu Qingru. Mo Tianji. Diwu Qingru completely understood Mo Tianji's intentions. He completely gave up on his own insistence. The 2 of them started to work closely together, making up for each other and quickly fighting for their own benefits. The occasional friction was harmless. This kind of battle was a kind of contest for the 2 of them, but it was also a kind of cooperation that had reached an extreme level of tacit understanding. This kind of tacit understanding made both of them feel the heavens have eyes. In this world, there is still someone who can be my opponent. Moreover, both of them had something in common: they didn't have any feelings for their respective teams. Mo Tianji didn't even bat an eyelid about the life and death of the Li clan. Similarly, Diwu Qingru didn't care about the life and death of the Allied forces. Mo Tianji was fighting for time, and so was Diwu Qingru. Although the cause of this matter was an assassination attempt by Mo Tianji and Diwu Qingru was passively accepting it, Diwu Qingru didn't feel uncomfortable at all. He could completely feel Mo Tianji's respect. It was the kind of respect that cherished a lifelong rival. This kind of respect made Diwu Qingru feel that he had no regrets even if he died. A strong fighting spirit also rose in him. Time was almost up, right? Almost up, right? The two monsters who were able to intimidate the heavens with their intellect were both calculating in their hearts, being overtaken by the monthly votes is my problem. In order to accompany my wife these few days, I've been out updating very little. It's inevitable that I'll be overtaken. Others are working harder, so why can't they overtake us, right? G. Chapter 1466. During this period of time, Chu Yang and the others also finally started to take action. They cooperated with Mo Tianji and tried their best to preserve the Li clan's combat power. Every time the situation was dangerous, the brothers would take action. If it was close to Chu Yang's side, it would be Chu Yang's organization taking action. If it was close from the other side, Jiyu Duxing and Xie Danqiong would take action. On this point, the two of them didn't have any discussion, but the decisions they made were basically the same. When there was a battle, the brothers would participate. When there wasn't a battle, they would start to concentrate on cultivating, digesting the experience and insights gained from the battle, and comprehending on their own. Each of their cultivations improved rapidly. Moreover, Chu Yang also discovered something that surprised him. Jiyu Duxing and Xie Danqiong's command and timing of participation were becoming more and more experienced. From the beginning, they couldn't keep up with Mo Tianji's rhythm, to later on, they were basically at ease. It was obvious that they had improved a lot. Jiyu Duxing and Xie Danqiong had begun to fully display their talents and wisdom when they had no one to rely on. Jiyu Duxing had slowly transformed from a pure warrior into a brave and resourceful warrior. At least, he knew how to think. To Jiyu Duxing, this was a great improvement. As for Xie Danqiong, he had some foundation to begin with. In the upper three heavens, he was also considered to be one of the most intelligent people. Now, he was just developing himself further. Ji Mo and Luo Kedi were still stuck. Other than practicing hard and feeling a kind of pleasure of the improvement of aptitude is fast, not slower than Jiyu Duxing and the others, the two of them couldn't care about anything else for the time being. The cultivation of the 8 of them was steadily stabilizing on the path of supreme martial artist. Then, bit by bit, they pushed forward. Especially Mo Qingwu. Because of her innate spirit meridians, she had already reached the breakthrough point of 7th grade supreme martial artist. She was on the verge of a breakthrough. Among them, Mo Qingwu was the youngest. But now, relying on her heaven-defying physique, she was actually at the forefront in terms of cultivation progress. Mo Tianji was also fighting for time. Time was the most important thing to him. Every day, he looked at Ao Xieyun's progress and imagined the progress of Chu Yang and the others. Ao Xieyun and Rui Butong were also chased to the battlefield by him. The only requirement was that the Li clan members were all dead. The two of you are not allowed to lose a single hair. If you can't win, run. Run when the enemy is strong. The two of you are completely outside of my strategic plan. It's like hunting 2 rabbits on New Year's Eve. These 2 sentences made Ao Xieyun and Rui Butong both feel warm and want to beat Mo Tianji up. What if you say you hunted 2 pheasants? It sounds better than a rabbit. Diwu Qingru's attacks were getting stronger and stronger. And, the pressure on Mo Tianji was also getting bigger and bigger. Mo Tianji could clearly feel it from every attack. Diwu Qingru used the power of the 7 big clans and the law enforcement officers in turn. Moreover, there were obvious hints about the targets they wanted to eliminate. For these people. Of course, Mo Tianji didn't refuse any of them. He ate everything. For example, Mo Tianji had set up 3 lines of defense. Diwu Qingru would attack from 3 sides at the same time. Then, he would issue a death order to capture one side, and this side was the one that Mo Tianji felt the most uncomfortable about. Therefore, Mo Tianji had to deploy his troops to defend with all his strength. Counterattack. The most interesting thing was that Diwu Qingru would command the troops to occupy the other side at this time, and abandon this side. Mo Tianji could easily devour these people, and Diwu Qingru could also open up the situation on his side. Everyone was happy. However, some of the people in Diwu Qingru's team who were difficult to control slowly disappeared just like that. And the places that Mo Tianji abandoned were often places that had strategic significance but no practical use. If two countries were at war, of course, every inch of land would be fought over. But now, they were against each other and couldn't defend at all. Therefore, Mo Tianji lost all the places that had to be abandoned sooner or later in batches. He only kept the important points. And that was, every time a place was conquered, the morale of Diwu Qingru's side would be greatly boosted. And the successive victories also boosted the morale of the allied forces. For those who sacrificed themselves, everyone thought that although it was a pity to die, it was valuable. Diwu Qingru once said, "Without sacrifice, there is no victory." This sentence was generally agreed by everyone. It makes too much sense. Therefore, there were only too many people who were loyal to Diwu Qingru within the allied forces. Especially the Lan clan, they basically didn't suffer any losses and all of their members were preserved. Chu Yang paid attention to the movements in the northwest at all times and was ready to move at any time. However, when Mo Tianji had to deal with Diwu Qingru's attack again, Chu Yang was absent. Because he saw someone. After a battle, Chu Yang had led Dong Wushang and the others toward that warm cave. Dong Wushang had charged back and forth in the alliance army and had sustained many injuries, but he was extremely spirited. Chu Yang wanted to treat his injuries, but Dong Wushang refused, saying that he wanted to preserve the pain of his injuries and clearly remember the epiphany that had flashed through his mind during that battle. This made Mo Lei feel both heartache and anger. When the four of them were about to reach the cave, they realized that there was a person standing in front of the cave in white robes. It was Wu Jucheng. Chu Yang was shocked. "Elder, why are you here?" Wu Jucheng smiled lightly. "I've been looking for you for a month." He paused and looked at Chu Yang. "I'm injured and poisoned." Chu Yang grimaced at once. He wasn't surprised that other people were injured by poison. Only Wu Jucheng was injured by poison. Chu Yang found it rather comical. Wu Jucheng's cultivation was even more profound than Ning Tianya's. He also had shocking poison techniques. Who could injure him? Who could make this great poison doctor poison him? Wu Jucheng saw his expression and said lightly, "The one who fought with me was the Dharma Supreme. He has already come to the northwest." Chu Yang was shocked. "So he's here too." Since he's here, the battle is still in a stalemate. Obviously, after you fought with him, he was also badly injured. Wu Jucheng's gaze was somewhat tired, but he said, "The Dharma Supreme has improved by leaps and bounds this time. If I hadn't left quickly, I'm afraid I would have really been killed by him and his two guardians." Chu Yang only felt a sudden sense of danger. In that instant, he felt a chill all over. Wu Jucheng actually said that he was in danger of losing his life. Then what level was the Dharma Supreme at now? "My poison is not an ordinary poison." Wu Jucheng panted. "There are all kinds of poisons in the world. I can neutralize all of them. The only exception is the poison that doesn't belong to the heavenly plane." Wu Jucheng said lightly, "If I had found you half a month later, I'm afraid I would have been crippled." Chu Yang said angrily, "Since you're already at this stage, why didn't you find Le? I left heavy pills beside Le." Wu Jucheng said indifferently, "I'm her master. Le is my disciple. A master can only give to his disciple and teach his disciple. But he can't take anything from his disciple. This is even more so for me, Wu Jucheng. I can give to my disciple, but I won't ask for anything from my own disciple." Chu Yang was instantly speechless. Even at the moment of life and death, this great master actually still had such persistence. He really didn't know whether to admire him or to want to give him a good beating. He took a step forward, carried Wu Jucheng on his back, and walked into the cave. "I can walk by myself." Wu Jucheng was somewhat unwilling. "Shut up." Chu Yang said fiercely. A poison that even the poison doctor Wu Ju-cheng was helpless against. He had already endured for more than a month. Chu Yang knew better than anyone the pros and cons of it. Seeing that Wu Ju-cheng actually still cared about his reputation, he couldn't hold himself back for a moment. Wu Ju-cheng didn't say anything. Cave. Chu Yang pointed out a few times and sealed Wu Ju-cheng's heart meridians. He controlled the circulation of his cultivation. In an instant, a cloud of black gas could be seen. It started to rise from Wu Ju-cheng's shoulders. In an instant, his entire arm and half of his chest were already filled with black gas. Where the black gas spread, there were actually signs of decay immediately. Without the suppression of Wu Ju-cheng's power, this poison actually spread at such an alarming speed. Chu Yang was greatly shocked. He immediately took out the incomplete version of the heavy pill. Wu Ju-cheng sniffed it and shook his head. This won't do. Won't do. Chu Yang was rather stunned. I've eaten as many of these things as they have. Wu Ju-cheng's face was already filled with black gas, but he still revealed an indescribable smile as he looked at Dong Wushang. Especially when he said I've eaten no less than them, he even broke into a grin. I'll know whether it'll work or not just by smelling it. Although Wu Ju-cheng was smiling, Chu Yang and the others could clearly sense a kind of complicated emotion that almost made one want to die spreading in his heart. All right. Chu Yang immediately ordered the sword spirit to quickly make a complete version of the heavy pill. Before long, the heavy pill was done. Chu Yang held it in his hands and was about to let Wu Ju-cheng swallow it. Let me take a look first. Let me take a look first. Wu Ju-cheng snatched it away. He couldn't care less that the black demonic aura had already spread and gathered above his head. He just looked at the heavy pill with trembling hands. Suddenly, a strong flush surged up to his face. He closed his eyes and tears streamed down his face. He murmured, "Big brother. Brother. I'm seeing this thing again. I need to rely on this thing to save my life again." He actually choked on his sobs. Thinking of Wu Ju-cheng's life, Chu Yang couldn't help but feel sorrowful. He understood infinitely how Wu Ju-cheng's heart was churning and aching right now. Therefore, although Wu Ju-cheng's situation was already very dangerous, Chu Yang didn't try to persuade him. Wu Ju-cheng silently shed a few tears. Finally, he swallowed the heavy pill reluctantly. The moment he swallowed the heavy pill, he saw that the black gas that was gathering and swirling around suddenly became even more frenzied, as if it was in the midst of a fierce struggle. After a long time, it finally started to dissipate slowly. Chu Yang watched as the palm print on Wu Ju-cheng's shoulder started to rot. Then, black blood slowly flowed out from within and dripped onto the ground. The hard stone ground actually started to rot at a speed visible to the naked eye, corroding all the way into a thin hole that was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. He couldn't help but be shocked. What kind of poison is this? Today's first update. I'll continue to write the second update. There must be one. G. Chapter 1467. Wu Juecheng chuckled. He turned his head and looked at the wound on his shoulder that was emitting black gas and dripping black blood at the same time. It was as if the wound wasn't on his body. He said, "If I had known that the Dharma Supreme had such a technique, the situation would have been better. But now, I was fully on guard against his lawful embodiment of heaven and earth technique. I didn't expect him to have such a trick up his sleeve." Chu Yang nodded darkly. "This poison is very strange. It seems to be demonic energy, but it doesn't seem like it." Wu Juecheng said indifferently, "What's not like it? It's just that some soul poison has been added. It's the poison of the extraterrestrial demon." He raised his head and looked at Chu Yang. There was a special meaning in his voice as he said word by word, "This is the poison of the extraterrestrial demon." Chu Yang's eyes suddenly flashed and became somewhat gloomy. He didn't say anything. Ever since the Dharma Supreme suddenly said that Chu Yang was an extraterrestrial demon, I've been a little puzzled. Wu Juecheng said indifferently, "Others may not know, but I do. The extraterrestrial demon is not a made-up name. It's a real existence. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of air and intensified the circulation of energy in his hands. The black aura on Wu Jueqing's wound became thicker and thicker. His other hand was also circulating energy, forcing all the black blood and poisonous gas into the corroded holes in the ground. He said, "Yes, the extraterrestrial demons really do exist." Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed. He said, "Oh, so you know about it too." His words seemed to have a deeper meaning. Chu Yang deliberated and said, "Yes, I know. The extraterrestrial demons really do exist. This matter. This is something that my ancestors told me. I can know about it. You are the Tribulation Sword Master. No matter what, you should know some secrets. So it's not surprising that you know about it." Wu Jueqing said indifferently, "But for the Dharma Supreme to know about it, that's intriguing." Chu Yang nodded slowly. "Yes. At that time, I was already suspicious. Could it be that the law enforcement officers had inherited this information? But I didn't expect that the Dharma Supreme himself would have such pure extraterrestrial demon energy." Wu Jueqing said slowly. The black gas on his face was gradually fading away. His face was back to its original fair and clean appearance. The bones in his body. There were also popping sounds. That was the heavy pill healing his injuries. This process was rather painful, but Wu Jueqing's expression didn't change. "It seems that these things. It happened to someone else." "You mean, the Dharma Supreme is in cahoots with the extraterrestrial demons?" Chu Yang asked cautiously. "Collude?" Wu Jueqing sneered and said, "He's not worthy." "Oh." Chu Yang frowned. It is said that in the ancient times, there was once an earth-shattering battle. And that time, a supreme expert perished, and at the same time, a few heavenly kings of the extraterrestrial demons also perished. As for their legacies, from then on, they are scattered between heaven and earth in an incomplete state. Wu Jueqing said dispassionately, "Based on my guess, the Dharma Supreme has probably only obtained a fragment of it, that's all. If he had gotten just a little bit more, I would have died a long time ago." Chu Yang nodded, "I see." Putting all the clues together, Chu Yang immediately understood. Presumably, it was the time when the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor resisted the foreign invasion. The result of the battle was tragic. As he spoke, the black aura had already flowed out of the wound on Wu Jueqing's shoulder. His blood had turned bright red. Wu Jueqing said softly, "Release my cultivation." Chu Yang frowned and said, "You still need to wait for a while. There's still residual poison in your body." He was also very surprised. This was the first time he had seen it. There were still poisons in this world that the heavy pill couldn't completely remove. "There's no need." Wu Jueqing said dispassionately, "I know what you're thinking. The heavy pill can remove this poison, but the last bit of the poison has already penetrated deep into the life force. Once the poison is removed, the life force will also be removed. Therefore, this part can't be forced out by the medicinal effect, but by my own life force and inner energy." Chu Yang understood at once. He hurriedly released Wu Jueqing's cultivation. Wu Jueqing smiled lightly and said, "When I'm done with forcing out the poison, I'll ask you some things, is that all right?" Chu Yang's eyes showed that he was in a difficult position. He knew what Wu Jueqing wanted to ask, but if he answered him now, would Wu Jueqing be able to accept it? "Let's talk about it after you're done forcing out the poison," said Chu Yang. "What I can tell you, I'll definitely tell you." Wu Jueqing's eyes flashed. He murmured, "What you can tell me, you'll definitely tell me. In other words, there are still things you can't tell me." Chu Yang smiled lightly. "Your life force is now trapped by the poison. It's better to remove the poison as soon as possible." After he finished speaking, he stood up and walked out. Wu Jueqing looked at his back view, his eyes shining brightly, and also a little agitated. There's indeed an inside story. Wu Jueqing took a deep breath. Even with his cultivation and willpower, when he thought of this question, he actually couldn't hold it in. Chu Yang walked out of the cave and stood in the snow, frowning in deep thought. Mo Qingwu was arranged to cultivate in the cave. Dong Wushang and the other two were also guarding Wu Jueqing. Now that they were here, of course, there was no need for any guards. The reason why Chu Yang made such arrangements was nothing more than to give himself some peace and quiet to think about some things. It's really very contradictory. Chu Yang looked at the misty sky and murmured softly to himself. Right now, there were two things in his heart that he still couldn't make a decision about. The first thing was about Mo Qingwu. The second thing was about Wu Juecheng. These two things were actually more or less the same. They were related to their respective secrets. Chu Yang had always been worried about Mo Qingwu's dream. Tell her. Or not tell her. Judging from the current situation, Mo Qingwu would awaken sooner or later. When that time came, would it be very harmful for her to know about it herself? But if he told her in advance that she was only 15 years old now, would she be able to accept it? The other thing was about Wu Juecheng. Chu Yang already understood what exactly was going on with Wu Juecheng back then. But if he were to tell him, he really didn't know what the consequences would be. Chu Yang fell into a deep dilemma. A figure flashed and Mo Lei'er appeared beside him. She said softly, "Big brother seems to have something on his mind." Ever since she confirmed her relationship with Dong Wushang, Mo Lei'er had been following Dong Wushang and calling him Big Brother. Chu Yang sighed. Mo Lei'er smiled and said, "Big brother should have something on his mind for a long time, right?" Chu Yang replied, "Yes." Mo Lei'er said, "Half a year ago, I already realized that Big Brother had something on his mind. It has been dragging on until now, but it still hasn't been resolved. Wushang is a one-track-minded person. He's currently guarding Senior Wu, so this little sister came out to ask." Chu Yang nodded and said, "Of course I admire the Black Devil's observation skills." Mo Lei'er smiled and said, "Big brother, why don't you tell me?" Chu Yang pondered and said, "There's something that concerns someone. She will know about it sooner or later, but I'm hesitating whether I should tell her in advance or not." Mo Lei'er also pondered. After a long time, she said, "I only have one suggestion, and that is, since you already know but she doesn't and she will know about it sooner or later, then, the longer you hide it, the more disadvantageous it will be. The more damage it will cause." Chapter 1468. What's new today? Mo Tianji asked Ao Xieyun and Rui Butong, who had just returned from the battle. The two of them belonged to different clans. During the battle, the dragon and phoenix did not suppress their pride at all. They always wanted to suppress the other party. Regardless of whether it was cultivation, mental state, comprehension of power, etc. Everything was like this. The reason why Mo Tianji brought the dragon and phoenix out was because he was afraid that after separating them, they would fall behind each other's progress. Now, it seemed that this goal had been achieved. Nothing new. Ao Xieyun said casually, "Among the few clans, only the second wave of reinforcements from the Yi clan has arrived. As for the Shi clan's reinforcements, most of them have already died. The other clans haven't arrived yet." Mo Tianji nodded. "Any new movements from the law enforcement officers?" "None. Logically speaking, the Ling clan is closer than the Yi clan. But they haven't arrived yet." Mo Tianji pondered. "Butong, go and tell Li Wubua to send people to keep an eye on the Ling clan. I reckon that the Ling clan is going to launch a surprise attack." "All right." Rui Butong turned and left. "Any movements from the big brother and the rest?" Mo Tianji asked Ao Xieyun. "Nothing. In this battle, the big brother, Wu Shong and little Wu didn't take action. Instead, it was the four of them, Jiu Laro Xie Tu, Silly Bird Ji and Idiot Luo who took action frequently." Ao Xieyun remembered the nicknames of his brothers very clearly. Furthermore, he always talked about them. Even if he was beaten up because of them, he would never tire of it. "Huh." Mo Tianji frowned. "It's actually very easy to distinguish." Ao Xieyun smiled and said, "As long as the big brother takes action, there will definitely be some kind of vigorous movement in the battle. There will also be that kind of arrogant and domineering laughter." It's similar to this. As he spoke, Ao Xieyun imitated Dong Wushang's posture. He puffed out his chest, protruded his stomach and opened his mouth wide. Using a domineering and arrogant posture, he laughed loudly. "Ha! Ha ha! Ha! Second Master Dong is here." Mo Tianji stared at him. Suddenly, his face darkened. When Dong Wushang did the same action, it was heroic and arrogant. However, when Ao Xieyun imitated it, it felt like he was acting. Go on. Mo Tianji rolled his eyes. That's right. I didn't hear Dong Wushang's voice in this battle. That's why boss didn't make a move. Ao Xieyun said, but I've heard so many other voices that I've grown calluses in my ears. What words? Mo Tianji regretted it the moment he spoke. I heard someone shouting coldly, die. This was Jiyu Duxing. Someone was shouting, watch out. This was Xie Dan Qiong. Someone was also shouting, awu tilde tilde awu tilde tilde. This was Luo Kedi. There was another voice calling out excitedly, dog aunt. Dog auntie. Ao Xieyun used an almost lifelike imitation. Describe the sounds on the battlefield. PFFF tilde tilde Mo Tianji spat out a mouthful of tea onto Ao Xieyun's face. Ao Xieyun wiped the tea with an innocent look on his face. Cough cough cough. Mo Tianji coughed violently for a while. Then, he said unhappily, don't talk about this kind of thing in the future. He was very angry that Ao Xieyun had broken the calm and self-restraint that he had always displayed. Ao Xieyun said angrily, I'm just trying to ease your mood. How dare you spit on my face? Mo Tianji rolled his eyes. He thought for a while and said, looks like nothing has happened on Jiyu Duxing's side. But on Big Brother's side, something abnormal has definitely happened. Ao Xieyun was startled. Oh, then do we need to? Mo Tianji thought for a while. He said, with Big Brother's cultivation, if he is together with Dong Wushang and the rest, this heavenly layer can't do anything to them. There are only a handful of them. If there are really enemies, then there's nothing we can do even if we rush over. So, let's wait quietly. The heavenly fault sword star is bright now. Nothing will happen to Big Brother. What we need to do now is to settle the matters here first. Mo Tianji said, we can't be distracted by other things. And I've been stalling for time so that everyone can grow in battle. Otherwise, once the Li clan is destroyed, it will be difficult for us to find such an opportunity again. Ao Xieyun understood tacitly and smiled. Yes, if they waited until the Li clan was destroyed, it would be really difficult to find such an opportunity. With such a powerful force at the front as cannon fodder, and the few of them just training, it would be really difficult to find such an opportunity. How's Li Xiong too? Mo Tianji asked. His injuries are almost healed. Plus, he doesn't have any abnormal reactions. Ao Xieyun said, but I can feel that he's a little sad. Mo Tianji said lightly, since his injuries are almost healed, it's time to fight. Ao Xieyun's heart trembled. Okay. Look after Meng Huanhuan's family. Mo Tianji reminded, don't let them fall into the hands of the Li clan. Ao Xieyun looked troubled. But, if the Li clan really wants to do it, they have countless opportunities. Meng Huanhuan and her family basically don't have the strength, I'm just trying my best. Mo Tianji said quietly, Li Xiong too can't take such a blow. This is just the basic respect we have for him. After saying that, he didn't say anything else. Ao Xieyun took a deep breath and said, if that's the case, I will try my best. From afar, Rui Bu Tong hurried over. Diwu Qingru is organizing an attack again. Let's go. Mo Tianji led the way. Another round of battle of wits and strength had begun. While the Li clan was in full swing, Chu Yang was also in a dilemma. Wu Jucheng's injuries were recovering very quickly. It was just that some of the poison still stubbornly remained in his body. Moreover, the heavenly demon qi used up a lot of his vitality and blood. Therefore, he couldn't participate in fierce battles for the time being. These few days, he had been silent. Some things, he had already said once, he wouldn't say it a second time. He believed that Chu Yang knew what he meant. He was just waiting. For this mystery, he had already waited for tens of thousands of years. He felt that he could afford to wait for a few more days. In order not to add to Chu Yang's pressure, he even tried his best not to look at Chu Yang now. After dinner, Chu Yang came to Wu Jucheng. Elder Wu. Wu Jucheng opened his eyes and looked at Chu Yang. Let's have a chat later in the night. When Chu Yang said this, the urge to swallow his words was absolutely overwhelming. Okay. Wu Ju Cheng's eyes suddenly lit up. It's a deal. It's a deal. Chu Yang resisted the urge to go back on his words and agreed against his will. Qingwu, I have a story here. Do you want to hear it? Chu Yang faced Mo Qingwu alone in the stone cave. Mo Qingwu raised her head and looked at Chu Yang somewhat perplexedly. Chu Yang's tone made her feel that something was wrong. He was too serious. I don't want to hear it. Out of Chu Yang's expectations, Mo Qingwu actually rejected him. Why? Asked Chu Yang. Mo Qingwu snuggled into Chu Yang's arms gently. Her small body trembled a little. I'm scared. Chu Yang was somewhat puzzled. I haven't started yet. What are you scared of? I want to be a little girl who doesn't know anything forever, like that. Even if you are tired of me, I can still cling to you and use all means to stay by your side. Mo Qingwu's eyes glistened with tears. I don't want to know anything. Chu Yang's heart shook. Suddenly, he turned Mo Qingwu's face over. Qingwu, do you know something? Mo Qingwu closed her eyes. 2 drops of tears fell quietly from the corners of her tightly shut eyes. Chu Yang's eyes became more and more shocked. He became a little flustered. Qingwu, tell me. What do you know? Mo Qingwu took a deep breath and sucked in the tears that had already flowed to the side of her mouth, feeling the bitterness. She asked softly, what story are you going to tell me? Chu Yang was dumbfounded. Are you going to tell me a story about a swordsman and a beautiful woman? Mo Qingwu's tears fell from her eyes. Chu Yang sighed deeply. But his arms tightened and hugged her even tighter. Mo Qingwu raised her head in his arms. She looked at him with teary eyes. There was deep love in her eyes, as well as a kind of devotion that almost had no sense of self. Chu Yang's heart trembled. He would never forget such a gaze for the rest of his life. In his previous life, he had seen it countless times and his heart had trembled countless times. However, he had also walked away countless times in the face of such a gaze, leaving behind a bleak and resolute back view. Behind that back view was a heart that had almost been destroyed by him. Mo Qingwu smiled miserably. She slowly lay down in Chu Yang's arms. She caressed his face with one hand, and tightly hugged his neck with the other. She rested her head on his left shoulder. Her eyes were affectionate and reluctant to part with him. They were lingering and painful. She softly said, Chu Yang, if there is an afterlife, I hope you will take a look at me. I am more beautiful than a sword. Chu Yang only felt a boom in his head, as if the whole universe had suddenly exploded in his consciousness. All of his thoughts, all of his reason, all of his, including his physical body, exploded into pieces at this moment, drifting faintly between heaven and earth. Mo Qingwu's words this time were different from the last few sleep talks. At this moment, Mo Qingwu's posture, expression, actions, eyes, words, all of them were the same as that evening in his previous life that broke Chu Yang's heart like dead ashi. It was that evening in front of the purple bamboo forest that Mo Qingwu was attacked and died. Before she died, she was in Chu Yang's arms, held by him like this, looking at him with such an expression and such a gaze, saying the last words of her life, Chu Yang, if there is a next life, I hope you will take a look at me. I am prettier than a sword. Now, Mo Qingwu said these words again. Even the tone and the pause in her voice were exactly the same as that time. If Chu Yang still didn't understand now, then he would really be stupid. Mo Qingwu raised her head and straightened her back. She looked at Chu Yang quietly and murmured, I have been waiting for you to tell me a story, but now that you want to tell me, I don't want to listen anymore. As she spoke, she slowly moved closer to Chu Yang, panting a little nervously. She gently covered Chu Yang's lips with her petal-like lips and murmured, You heartless man, when I got home, I didn't have time to eat before I sat down in front of the computer to write my story. Gee, I beg for monthly votes. Gee. Chapter 1469. Mo Qingwu murmured softly. She whispered softly, Chu Yang, you heartless man. Then, she wrapped her arms around Chu Yang's neck. Her beautiful eyes closed slightly, and her petal-like lips covered Chu Yang's lips as she kissed him deeply. A teardrop dripped from her eye onto Chu Yang's face. Chu Yang sat there in a daze, feeling the soft red lips on his face. The salty taste of tears made him feel happy, satisfied, pitiful, and heartbroken. Mo Qingwu kissed Chu Yang passionately with tears streaming down her face. She almost wanted to rub her entire body into his. She kissed Chu Yang desperately while crying bitterly. Her tears fell uncontrollably. Chu Yang let out a low growl. He pulled Mo Qingwu into his arms and kissed her fiercely. Those delicate red lips trembled and flipped under his tongue. Mo Qingwu didn't dodge at all. She just catered to him with all her might. She murmured, Chu Yang. Chu Yang. You're such an enemy, such a heartless man. You. Oh, but her lips were blocked and she couldn't speak. Chu Yang kissed her very crazily, but there was no desire in their hearts at all. Both of them understood that this was the combination of ecstasy and compensation from their past and present lives. The kind of relief when everything was said out loud. There was also a kind of indescribable complex emotion. Both of them had mixed feelings. Ecstasy and bitterness, the dreamy mentality of regaining what they had lost, the unreal feeling of fearing that they were in a dream. It made them need to use this wild kiss to vent and confirm something. This kiss had nothing to do with desire, but it was about their hearts. After a long, long time, when Mo Qingwu's face was already red from holding it in, she finally broke free from Chu Yang's mouth. She looked at him in a daze for a while. Suddenly, her eyes turned red and she started to sob softly. Chu Yang hugged her and patted her back gently to comfort her. Mo Qingwu started to sob softly, and then it slowly turned into tears. She covered her mouth with her hand and looked at Chu Yang with teary eyes. She started to cry silently. Chu Yang took a deep breath. He took a deep breath. At this moment, his heart felt sour. For a moment, he seemed to have thousands of words to say, but he couldn't say them. His throat felt as if it was blocked. He only felt as if there were countless thick phlegm in his throat that he could not spit out. That feeling was so uncomfortable that he felt as if he was suffocating. His chest felt as if it was about to explode. He looked up to the sky and roared. Mo Qingwu gradually calmed down after a long while, and stopped crying. However, she still remained in Chu Yang's arms. It was as if hugging him quietly like this was already her lifelong wish. He was satisfied. When did you find out? Chu Yang asked in a hoarse voice. He didn't yell or scream, but he was trying his best to control his voice to be as clear as usual. He actually couldn't do it. I don't know. Mo Qingwu said softly, I kept having this dream. My heart was getting more and more scared. And it became clearer and clearer. Until the heavens opened, everything suddenly became connected, and I understood something. Suddenly, he said in a low voice, now that I think about it, there are many things that can't be explained. Chu Yang asked nervously, what did you think of? The first time we met in the lower three heavens. Mo Qingwu said, we are from aristocratic families and have a strict upbringing. Although you saved us at that time, it wasn't to the point where we were so familiar and close when we first met. But half a year before that, I suddenly felt a jolt in my sleep. Then, a person's face seemed to appear in my dream, but I forgot about it immediately. Then, when I saw you in the lower three heavens, I felt an inexplicable sense of closeness. Mo Qingwu said, now that I think about it, the face in the dream was your face. So, Mo Qingwu had a perplexed look on her face, but Chu Yang had already understood. Tribulation Sword. Half a year ago was when he obtained the first fragment of Tribulation Sword in Beyond the Heavens sect. He obtained the sword tip of Tribulation Sword, and Mo Qingwu started to see his face in her dreams. This led to the first time he met Mo Qingwu. Although Mo Qingwu didn't know him, she didn't have much wariness towards him. Then, again and again, the figure in the dream became clearer and clearer. At that time, I only knew that it was because you were the only one in the world who treated me well. But now that I think about it, it's not normal. Mo Qingwu said, because every time, it was a jolt in my sleep, and then it became clearer and clearer. Until the heavenly passage opened. Mo Qingwu said, and you also clearly said that at that time, you obtained the first fragment of Tribulation Sword. At that time, it was already very obvious. I found it strange. It's not strange to have a dream, but to have a dream for a long time is very strange. And, generally speaking, dreams aren't real. So, even if I know any skills in the dream, I'll forget them when I wake up. But in this dream, I can do all the things I know when I wake up. I've never done it before, but now I suddenly know how to do it. Isn't this very strange? Mo Qingwu's beautiful eyes were bleak. Chuyang, I've been following you all this time. Sometimes, I'll cook and barbecue. Can't you taste some familiar flavors? Although I try to hide it, as long as I'm with you, I can't help but tidy up everything, make the bed, and do the housework. Don't you feel a little bit of familiarity, as if you've seen it before? Realization dawned on Chuyang. Recently, he kept feeling that something was wrong. Because of this feeling, he even felt uneasy for a few days to search for the reason. Who would have thought that the source was by his side? I'm really careless. To think that I used to call myself a wise man. Chuyang patted his head in frustration. If I'd discovered it earlier, I wouldn't have hesitated for so long, and suffered for so long. Chuyang looked up and sighed. Mo Qingwu smiled gently and said, I've always suspected that the dream was real. If it wasn't, how could I easily learn those things in the dream that I've never done before? Her plump lips moved and said, including killing people. At that time, I felt as if I'd become two people. One was an innocent little girl, and the other was a woman who'd experienced the vicissitudes of life. I was very scared, but I didn't dare to say it. Until Aspen Valley, when you obtained the 7th fragment of the Calamity Sword, I understood that my dreams followed your sword. Because at that time, I suddenly understood everything. I knew that everything was real. Mo Qingwu gritted her teeth and said hatefully, I hate it so much. In my previous life, what I hated the most was your sword. I've always hated it. You hugged your sword all day long. All of your emotions, all of your focus, all of it was given to an ice-cold piece of iron. You didn't care about me. Mo Qingwu puffed up her cheeks and said, in my previous life, before I died, I still wanted to compete with your sword. I didn't expect that after being reborn, my memories would still follow it. Mo Qingwu's current appearance was very strange. She had the appearance of a young girl. She puffed up her cheeks and spoke angrily, but her expression and tone were that of a charming mature girl. These two completely different styles were unified on her body at the same time. It made this little girl transform into an enchanting person who could change into 1,000 different forms. While Chuyang feasted his eyes, he could only smile bitterly. Regarding this question, he really didn't know how to answer. At that time, I knew. Mo Qingwu said softly. Chuyang's throat was extremely dry. He coughed hard and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He said, then, why didn't you say it? Because I hadn't thought about it. Mo Qingwu sighed softly. I hadn't thought about what I should do. I was very scared. Chuyang said dryly, scared? I'm scared. Will you leave me again? I'm afraid that I'll lose you again. I even want to leave with all the good things about you. On my birthday, all I can remember is your care and concern, and I won't be hurt in the slightest. Chuyang was shocked. He hugged her tightly and said, no. No. In the end, I still couldn't bear to. Mo Qingwu sighed and said, I couldn't bear to. Suddenly, a strange feeling rose in my heart. It was just like in my previous life, that kind of feeling. I will follow you. I will follow you. Even if I am hurt by you again, even if I am abandoned again, even if you still don't care about me, even if you still want to use my feelings to practice your sword. Mo Qingwu lowered her head and said softly, I will not regret it. You won't. You won't. Chuyang hugged her tightly, and repeatedly said, Qingwu, you must believe me. I will never do such a shameful thing again. I have done it once, and I have suffered for 2 generations. Now that I finally have the opportunity to make up for it, I will definitely not hurt you. Mo Qingwu lowered her head and didn't say anything. Her shoulders trembled slightly. She seemed to be in deep thought. But Chuyang didn't know that Mo Qingwu's mouth was slowly outlining an intoxicated smile at this moment. This intelligent woman had used her schemes here. However, this scheme appeared so pure and trustworthy. For a lifetime of happiness, she had finally taken the most crucial step in 2 generations. "You don't believe me?" Chu Yang said nervously. "I can swear." Before Chu Yang could finish, Mo Qingwu had already turned her head gently and blocked his words with her lips. "After a long time," she said, "oaths are meant to be broken. I don't need you to swear. I only believe in you." Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. "Since you obtained the 7th fragment of the Calamity Sword, my memory has been completely restored. Then, I have been in your arms all this time. I have been following you and observing you. I have to make up for it. I also want to see how you treat me. I have also been thinking about how to torture you to vent my anger and punish you for being such a heartless person." Mo Qingwu sighed, "But until now, I still can't bear to." Chapter 1470. Thank goodness you couldn't bear to. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh of relief and laughed foolishly. "If you could bear to, then I'd be bad. I can't bear to." Mo Qingwu hid her small face in his arms and muttered, "If you want to bear to, then the previous generation would bear to. Since the previous generation couldn't bear to, then this generation won't bear to either. The younger generation won't bear to either." Chu Yang smiled contentedly and said with relief, "I'm even more reluctant. At first, I was thinking of how to torture you. But, I saw that you were constantly making up for it. So, my heart gradually softened." Mo Qingwu said, "Chu Yang, you know what? What I want is not you deliberately making up for it. I understand." Chu Yang smiled. His heart calmed down and his mind became lively. He said, "But, what do you want?" Mo Qingwu blushed and spat. "And now, you actually have so many attachments." Mo Qingwu pouted and said hatefully, "Chu Yang, you're really very romantic." Chu Yang's face was full of black lines and he looked at her with a pitiful look. Mo Qingwu said lightly, "You said that you came back to life for me. You came to this step by step to make it up to me. But is this how you make it up to me?" She raised her head and looked at Chu Yang. There was resentment and blame in her eyes. Chu Yang was speechless. After thinking for a long time, he wanted to say, "I didn't know beforehand." He also wanted to say, "I've always stuck to my original intention." But after thinking about it, he didn't say anything. He just sighed. Said, "This matter is all my fault." Since it had already happened, then the reason was the reason. There were thousands of reasons for you to accept, but there was only one reason for you to reject. Since you didn't reject, then, no matter what the premise was, it didn't matter. The final result was, you didn't reject. Mo Qingwu snorted. She said, "At least you know what's good for you." Chu Yang coughed twice. "But don't think that this matter is over just like that." Mo Qingwu pouted. "I still have to test you. If you..." Chu Yang hurriedly said, "I'll definitely accept the test with a sincere attitude." When he said this, he sounded a little submissive. She saw the proud and arrogant Chu Yang standing in front of her, not daring to even breathe loudly, even though she knew that he was faking it. However, Mo Qingwu still couldn't bear it in her heart. She forcefully controlled herself and said, "You're really a playboy. You have a senior sister who's an outstanding beauty, an empress who's peerless in her generation, and an unprecedented female expert. Minister Chu, it's true that your fighting ability is inferior to others, but your luck with women is also inferior to others." Chu Yang said with a drooling face, Yes, my luck with women is indeed not shallow. You even said that there's one less. There's still the number one beauty in the world, Mo Qingwu. She's also my wife." Mo Qingwu's face immediately turned red. She stomped her feet and said angrily, "Who's your wife?" Chu Yang hugged her and said, "It's you. Xiao Wu." As he said that, his 2 hands were about to misbehave with practiced ease. Mo Qingwu's whole body went limp. She forcefully pulled his hands out of her clothes and said sadly, "What number one beauty? I'm more like the number one ugly girl. I've been abandoned by you again and again, and have been wantonly humiliated by you. A pitiful girl who was ravaged at will and finally abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes." Chu Yang's hands continued to attack. He bit her ear and said softly, "Then how did I ravage and humiliate you at will? What did I do at that time?" Mo Qingwu parted to resist, but felt that her body had softened into a puddle of water. She panted and said, "Beast. I'm not even 15. Chu Yang took his hands out of her clothes and continued to attack other parts of her body. He said, "You're only 15. I don't believe it. You look like you're 25 everywhere. Come, let me touch and check." He knew that since Mo Qingwu had started to bring up old scores, this was definitely not going to be easy for him. At this point, if he wanted to give up on any one of them, it would inevitably be a matter of regret. Unfortunately, Mo Qingwu was not easy to pass, so he could only use rogue means to disrupt Mo Qingwu's train of thought first. Before Mo Qingwu regained her memory, in Chu Yang's eyes, she was of course a little girl who was not even 15 years old. But now, Chu Yang clearly felt like an old married couple. That age barrier actually disappeared without a trace at this moment. "Wait." Mo Qingwu held his hands tightly. Her face was as bright as a peach blossom. She bit her lip and said, "No. In the previous life, I did everything you said in the wilderness. But not in this life. If you don't give me an explanation, you can forget about touching me." "Explanation?" Chu Yang asked. I want you to marry me properly. I want you to carry me in a palanquin with 8 carriers. I want you to swear to heaven and earth that you will marry me as your wife. I want all your beauties to be ranked behind me, each and every one of them to call me big sister. I want them to be obedient in front of me, no matter if they are peerless experts or empresses." Mo Qingwu gritted her teeth and said almost in a fit of pique, "As for other things, don't even think about it. Until the wedding night. I was deceived by you in the previous life. In this life, you can forget about it." Chu Yang was very troubled. Although this little girl was small, her ambition was not small. In the heavenly realm, male power reigned supreme. It was normal for men to have multiple wives and concubines. It was even more so in the big aristocratic families. Mo Qingwu grew up in a clan and was really influenced by this aspect. She did not feel that there was anything wrong with men having multiple wives and concubines. Although she was very uncomfortable and jealous, it was not to the extent that she could not accept it. Fighting for status was a result of the education of the big aristocratic families. Whoever was the first wife of the family would be the direct descendant of the family in the future, and the children of other women belonged to the side branch. The difference in status was like heaven and earth. Mo Qingwu could be considered to have learned from Mo Tianji to prepare for a rainy day. Chu Yang felt that he was about to be forced to sign an agreement. "Why, are you angry?" Mo Qingwu narrowed her eyes and looked at him, her expression somewhat sly. "No." Chu Yang coughed a few times. "Chemph. I'm not making things difficult for you. When the time comes, we'll rely on our own abilities." Mo Qingwu snorted and said, "At most, there won't be a big or small difference. The children in the future will fight for it themselves." Chu Yang said, "You're only 15, and you're already thinking of the children in the future." Mo Qingwu was very embarrassed and refused to comply. Chu Yang hurriedly comforted her. After a long while, he finally coaxed this little girl into not being angry anymore. Both of them knew what the other meant. Neither of them took what the other said seriously. They were just using this kind of commotion to eliminate the last bit of unfamiliarity between the two of them from their previous lives. The two of them understood each other very well. Naturally, they knew how to eliminate the barrier in each other's hearts. After a long time, Mo Qingwu said softly, "Chu Yang, if in this life, you could only choose one between Calamity Sword and me, what would you do?" The entanglement of their previous lives. Mo Qingwu could not let it go. She, an outstanding beauty, had actually lost to a sword. This was really the deepest knot in her heart. She could not forget it. "Then I only want you." Chu Yang's words were absolutely sincere. "As long as I have you, Calamity Sword is not important to me. If I really have to make a choice, I'll throw it away now." Calamity Sword circled around Chu Yang's dantian aggrievedly and let out a sword cry that was almost about to cry. Mo Qingwu was satisfied. She leaned forward and kissed it again. She said, "Forget it, I forgive you." This sentence, however, restored the little girl's character in this life. Chu Yang stared blankly at this scene. He suddenly had a thought: even if I only have Mo Qingwu, it seems like I have married two wives, an innocent and invincible little girl. A delicate and pitiful woman. Completely different. I still need to fuse. Mo Qingwu smiled bitterly and said to Chu Yang, "The two personalities are completely opposite. I'm also troubled sometimes. It's okay if you don't fuse." Chu Yang smiled evilly and leaned close to her ear and said, "In the future, if you have this personality tonight and that tomorrow night, I don't mind, get lost." Mo Qingwu flipped. Her little face was like a ripe persimmon. She was so embarrassed that she kicked out. "Shameless pervert." Chu Yang laughed and turned over. He said, "Qingwu, I'll go and see Senior Wu." Mo Qingwu buried her face in the blanket. She snorted like an ostrich. Chu Yang smiled and turned to leave. Both of them knew that the impact brought by the memory could not be completely eliminated by a conversation tonight. Even if they talked until dawn, it would not be eliminated. There must be a buffer of events to let both of their hearts gradually calm down from this aspect. Only then could they slowly accept and get used to it step by step. Although there were a few incidents tonight with hooligan tactics, ugly jokes and unreasonable behavior, but it was far from enough. Both of them understood this in their hearts. But, in the end, they put down one of their worries. Chu Yang walked out of the cave, and was greeted by a mouthful of ice-cold snowflakes and whistling cold wind. The fiery passion in his mind was immediately restrained by more than half. He walked into the snowstorm, and saw that the snowman had already turned into a statue. His mood inexplicably became heavy when he saw it. Wu Juecheng. Comparatively speaking, Mo Qingwu's hurdle was easier to pass. Because Mo Qingwu had deep feelings for him in both the past and present life. Chu Yang didn't need to waste his breath. In fact, that was also the case. But Wu Juecheng's was more difficult. Say. Or not say. If he didn't say, Wu Juecheng might be depressed and unable to smile until he died of old age. If he said, this poison doctor might really slit his own throat. With Wu Juecheng's intense personality, this tendency was close to 80%. Chu Yang didn't dare to take the risk. But, as Mo Leiya said, the longer it dragged on, the more Wu Juecheng couldn't accept it. Chu Yang told him that it was still better. If Wu Juecheng knew about it himself in the future, then there would really be no room for negotiation. Chapter 1471. Tonight, I want to know the entire truth, said Wu Juecheng solemnly. His voice was very calm, even a little flat. But there was a determination in it. An unquestionable determination. Chu Yang heaved a deep sigh. He said, I know what you want to know. Wu Juecheng said, I know you know. What do you want to know? Chu Yang was silent for a moment. Then, he said, you can ask. What do you mean by I can ask? Wu Juecheng's eyes sharpened. In other words, you can answer. And you can choose not to answer. Chu Yang raised his head, opened his mouth, and let the ice-cold snowflakes float into his mouth. He felt the bone-chilling coldness. Then, he closed his mouth, closed his eyes, and said calmly, yes, I have the leeway to choose. Wu Juecheng fell silent. After a long while, he said, I am over 40,000 years old this year. Chu Yang was sensitive enough to know what he meant. He heaved a deep sigh. I know. You don't know. Wu Juecheng's eyes widened. He shouted in a low voice, I want to tell you that I am over 40,000 years old this year. I have seen the joys and sorrows of the world, and I have also gotten used to life and death. I have even witnessed the transformations of the world. Countless people were born right beside me. When I turned back, they had already died of old age and turned into dust. I have seen the rise and fall of countless heroes. I have also seen the prosperity and destruction of countless clans. Wu Juecheng looked at Chu Yang with a somewhat gloomy gaze. With a kind of weariness that came from seeing through worldly affairs, he said dispassionately, I want to tell you. There is nothing in this world that can affect me, at the very least. I will not collapse because of anything. Chu Yang heaved a deep sigh. I know. You still don't know. Wu Jueqing shouted. I also want to tell you that I am over 40,000 years old. All these years, my only wish is to clear the doubts in my heart, the resentment in my heart, my brothers who died in vain. All of this is because of one problem. And this problem is my only wish. I can't hold on for another 40,000 years, Chu Yang. Wu Jueqing's gaze was somewhat erratic and sorrowful. The only person who can fulfill my wish now is you. Chu Yang sighed. Wu Jueqing's current state. Chu Yang absolutely believed what he said. You once said that if the day comes, I'll give it to you. You will solve my doubts. You also said that as long as I wait for a long time and increase my strength, I will be able to see my brothers again. I waited, but I waited too long. Before you appeared, I knew that I would never be able to see them again. So even though my heart was bitter, I didn't feel anything. But after you appeared, there was hope. It's precisely because there's hope that it's more painful, even more unbearable. Wu Jueqing sighed miserably. He stared blankly at the wind and snow. His eyes were as hazy as the wind and snow. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, Senior Wu, shall we take a walk? Wu Jueqing whipped his head around to look at Chu Yang. He said heavily, all right. Chu Yang, dressed in black, floated out amidst the wind and snow. Beside him was Wu Jueqing, dressed in white. The two of them walked side by side, amidst this vast expanse of snow, amidst this steep cliff. It was as if he was walking on flat ground. He didn't say anything for a long time. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled dozens of miles. They were already in an empty wilderness. The world was vast and everything was silent. Only the sound of snowflakes falling on the ground could be heard. Yet, it was even more tranquil. Senior Wu, in this world, something is happening every moment. Chu Yang said slowly. He adjusted his inner thoughts and deliberated over his words. Every matter has its own reason, and it also has its own outcome. Whether it's a hooligan or a member of the royal family, it's the same. There's no exception. Wu Jueqing walked with his hands behind his back. He listened quietly and didn't say a word. And in this world, there are always layers of fog, misunderstandings, troubles and discomforts. But everything, even if there can only be one truth. And what we seek in our entire lives is only for one truth. Even if the goals we seek are different, there can never be two final outcomes. Chu Yang was rather emotional. Wu Jueqing said quietly, yes, even if it's a misunderstanding of your own brothers, then the reason for the misunderstanding is the truth. Chu Yang's heart trembled. Wu Jueqing said calmly, back then, Yu Lingxue once said something. At that time, he said, didn't your big brother back then go through fire and fire with you? Before your big brother betrayed you, did you dare to doubt him? Did you ever doubt him? Didn't you still trust him like how you trust your other brothers? If someone had told you before that your boss would kill you, would you have believed it? See chapter 420 of Book 7 for details. Wu Jueqing repeated Yu Lingxue's words back then without missing a single word. His voice and tone didn't change at all. It was enough to show how deep of an impression Yu Lingxue's words had left in his heart. Chu Yang was silent. Wu Jueqing stared at Chu Yang and said word by word, I'm telling you now, I don't believe it. The heaviness in Wu Jueqing's voice made Chu Yang's heart skip a beat. Back then, I was patched up and escaped. For tens of thousands of years after that, my heart was filled with resentment and desire for revenge. Wu Jueqing smiled bitterly. I have to say, humans are very selfish. I only thought of my own grievances and the resentment of my brothers. I didn't think much about anything else. My entire heart was already filled with hatred. Hatred towards Big Brother. I was filled with extreme hatred for tens of thousands of years. During this period of time, I also thought about whether Big Brother had his own difficulties. But every time I thought about it, I became even more resentful. Because there was no reason for him to betray his brothers like that. To kill his own brothers like that. So I felt even more pain. and even more desire for revenge. Until I met you Lingxue. You Lingshue's words made me start to think more. The more I thought, the more I couldn't fall asleep. Before Big Brother set us up, he had countless chances. Countless chances. He even understood each and every one of us. He knew what each of us was thinking in our hearts. Big Brother could immediately know what we were thinking about from each of our eyes and actions. He didn't need to speak. He only needed a look, a hint, and he could make our brothers die for him. Boss is well aware of this. But he still set us up like that. Why? That was simply superfluous. And because of this superfluous action, I let myself bear the grievances for more than 30,000 years. Then I looked at you in Tianji City. I started to be suspicious. You, Dong Wushang and Rui Butong were all from ordinary families. Why did you advance faster than the geniuses of the big clans? But there weren't many of you at that time. My suspicions were also very faint. After arriving at the Chu clan, I slowly started to have real suspicions. Then, I slowly confirmed it from various aspects. You are the Tribulation Sword Master. This discovery almost drove me crazy at that time. I was so excited that I almost went crazy. I finally found the person involved. But, after that, I watched coldly from the sidelines. I saw how deep your brotherhood was, I saw how you laughed together, and I saw how your brothers trusted you unconditionally. You loved and cared for them unconditionally. Looking at all of you, it was as if I had returned to the time when I was young. I thought of my brothers and my big brother. All of you were exactly the same as us at that time. I watched all of you do things together every time. At night, I would toss and turn. Sometimes, I would feel so sad that I wanted to cry. Then, I would miss them endlessly. At that time, I would rather die than live. As time passed, I also started to slowly ask myself, if you, Chu Yang, continue to interact with your brothers like this, when the critical moment comes, will you kill your brothers? Wu Juecheng smiled bitterly. The answer I gave myself back then was no. He turned to look at Chu Yang and said, do you know? When I told myself in my heart, Chu Yang would never harm his own brothers, I felt as if my head had been struck by lightning. My heart ached so much that I fainted. When I woke up, I asked myself, if Chu Yang didn't know how to do it, then how is my big brother worse than Chu Yang? My big brother is better than this bullshit Chu Yang. He's more affectionate and righteous. In front of my big brother, what is Chu Yang? If even he doesn't know how to do it, why does my big brother know how to do it? Wu Juecheng panted heavily. He glared at Chu Yang and shouted sternly, Chu Yang is nothing. In front of my big brother, he's nothing. Chu Yang rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. But at this moment, Chu Yang knew that Wu Juecheng was completely immersed in his own memories and wasn't really scolding him. So he could only smile bitterly. There was also a deep feeling of gratitude in his heart. Just a few decades of brotherhood, but it was enough to make a peak second-grade supreme martial artist faint from heartache just thinking about it after 40,000 years, and there was even such a serious misunderstanding between the moment Chu Yang thought about it, he suddenly felt a warm feeling in his heart. I want to know the reason. Wu Juecheng stared at the vast expanse of snow in a daze. After a long while, he turned and asked seriously, why did my big brother do that? Without waiting for Chu Yang to answer, he said, I know what you are worried about, but what I'm saying now, I think it can dispel your concerns. Chu Yang looked at his calm expression. He sighed and said, yes, there are some. Wu Juecheng bowed to the ground. Please enlighten me. Chu Yang nodded helplessly. Wu Juecheng had done a lot of preparation work. He had pointed out all the things that he could be worried about, and had also tried to resolve them. He was just short of telling himself, I won't commit suicide. That was it. At this point, Chu Yang had already made up his mind. Although he couldn't be sure whether Wu Juecheng had really thought it through, Chu Yang felt that with him by his side now, he should be able to avoid some things. Yes, there is only one truth. And the truth should also be cruel. Chu Yang said, Elder Wu, you have to be mentally prepared. Chapter 1472. Extraterrestrial demons? Wu Jueqing's body shook at once. His eyes lit up as he looked at Chu Yang. This matter is actually related to the extraterrestrial demons. It's the extraterrestrial demons that harmed my boss. Towards the end, his face was already contorted. That's not the case, said Chu Yang. I'm only asking you, how much do you know about the extraterrestrial demons? Wu Jueqing was silent for a moment before he replied, I don't know. It's just that the last time, when my ancestors came, they introduced me to the demonic techniques of the extraterrestrial demons and told me about the dangers of demonic techniques. More than 10,000 years ago, I also killed a small fry who had inherited the legacy of the extraterrestrial demons. From that, I understood a little. But regarding the nature of the extraterrestrial demons, I really don't know much. Chu Yang nodded and said, This is Part 7, Chapter 717, The True Mission. This matter has to start from the extraterrestrial demons. Wu Jueqing nodded and listened seriously. He knew that no matter how anxious he was, he had to listen to Chu Yang's detailed explanation. And Chu Yang would definitely not explain everything in one go. Even if Chu Yang wanted to explain everything in one go, Wu Jueqing would still have to worry about whether he could withstand that kind of directness. After all, this involved his life's goal, the people he cared about the most painful thing. Therefore, even if the final outcome was directly told, he still had to get to the bottom of it and ask about everything clearly. The only thing he felt now was his heartbeat quickening and his breathing quickening. For the first time in more than 30,000 years, he was so close to the truth. Just this prelude already made Wu Jueqing feel like he couldn't take it anymore. Although what he said to Chu Yang just now was very beautiful. But Wu Jueqing himself knew. That was just to comfort Chu Yang and to comfort himself. But in reality, he couldn't comfort himself at all. Elder Wu, there's another celestial imperial court above our world. This is obviously not a secret to you, said Chu Yang softly. What I'm going to tell you is a secret from millions of years ago. Wu Jueqing swallowed his saliva. I know. Part 7, Chapter 717, The True Mission. Chu Yang squatted down and reached out his hand. A piece of snow flew up and formed a thin strip in his hand. He drew a circle on the snow and said, Elder Wu. This circle is the Celestial Imperial Court. Wu Jueqing frowned. Looking at the circle on the ground, he also squatted down. This circle. The land was blessed with outstanding people and abundant resources. Therefore, there were many people who coveted it. The strongest group of them are the extraterrestrial demons. Chu Yang used the snow stick in his hand to draw another big circle, wrapping the previous small circle inside. Then, he pointed a few points inside the big circle. It was as if Wu Jueqing had discovered a treasure. He looked at the two circles, one big and one small, that Chu Yang had casually drawn, his expression solemn and serious. It looked like a child's graffiti. She was fatally attractive to him. I don't know how many tens of thousands of years ago, the place where the extraterrestrial demons lived suddenly deteriorated. It could no longer support the reproduction of so many extraterrestrial demons. In order to survive, they had to expand and find a new living environment. And the Heaven Imperial Court is obviously the most ideal one. Chu Yang said lightly, so the extraterrestrial demons launched an attack on the Heavenly Imperial Court. He laughed bitterly and said, the so-called heavenly demon chi we've encountered now is only the power generated by the use of the tiny fragments of the extraterrestrial demons. It can be seen from this. The true power of the invasion of the extraterrestrial demons is something that people like us can never imagine. Chu Yang said solemnly. Yes. Wu Jueqing sighed and went into a daze for a while, as if he was thinking about the extraterrestrial demons. Finally, he smiled dejectedly. He said, I understand what you mean. And at that time, there was a hero. He guarded the gates of the Heaven Imperial Court and led his brothers until he died in battle. Chu Yang said lightly, that hero was the ruler of the Heaven Imperial Court, Purple Cloud Heavens. At that time, the ruler of the Heaven Imperial Court was the saint. Until that hero led millions of brothers and died in battle, other than the scattered martial artists who went to help, there was no one else in the Heaven Imperial Court who sent reinforcement. Wu Jueqing's eyes widened. What? Chu Yang said quietly, what you heard is what I said. It's absolutely true. Wu Jueqing's eyes widened and he said loudly, bullshit. Resisting foreign invaders can't be done overnight, right? For such a long time, there are so many experts in the Heaven Imperial Court. There's also the ruler of the highest authority, but not a single soldier went to help. What does this mean? Resisting foreign invaders, I don't know how many years it took, but it must have been decades. Chu Yang said seriously, but there were indeed no reinforcements. Later on, that heavenly emperor of the purple cloud heavens was forced to self-destruct when he was at his wit's end. He perished together with several heavenly demon kings. Chu Yang sighed deeply and said, and that remnant of the heavenly demon legacy that you met and killed, as well as the Dharma Supreme, and perhaps others, are all fragments and fragments left behind after the heavenly emperor of the purple cloud self-destructed and caused the heavenly demon kings to dissipate. Wu Jueqing suddenly fell silent. It was as silent as a volcano that was about to erupt. Just as Chu Yang was about to continue speaking, Wu Jueqing suddenly exploded. What? The Dharma Supreme, that bastard, is actually still using the fragments of the heavenly demon left behind by that lone hero who self-destructed to resist foreign invaders. In other words, the hero's spoils of war, to deal with us. Chu Yang was somewhat stunned. He had long known that Wu Jueqing would be agitated, so he tried his best to pave the way for Wu Jueqing to calmly get over this knot in his heart. But he never expected that before he even got to the main point, even when he was miles away from the topic, Wu Jueqing would already be agitated. What the hell? Wu Jueqing growled. Is he still human? Wu Jueqing was very agitated. He cursed continuously, infuriated beyond measure. At first, Chu Yang was somewhat stunned, but slowly, he suddenly truly understood Wu Jueqing's true character. This was a supreme martial artist expert from an aristocratic family. In his heart, there was the splendor of the martial world. There was the inextinguishable brotherhood. But similarly, there was also the hero complex that belonged to aristocratic families. In other words, he was a typical young hero from an aristocratic family. In the words of the author, he was a nationalistic youth. That kind of heroic spirit and chivalry inherent in aristocratic families, almost equivalent to naive, was still deeply ingrained in him. Chu Yang was somewhat appreciative and also somewhat envious. Wu Jueqing could be said to be a pure person, and also a respectable person, an adorable person. Wu Jueqing's face was somewhat flushed with agitation. He asked, who is this hero? Chu Yang said solemnly, his position is the heavenly emperor of the purple cloud. His name is Zihao. Zihao. Wu Jueqing was somewhat fascinated. He said, such a hero. If I could meet him, how delightful would that be? Chu Yang said softly, the last words of this heavenly emperor of the purple clouds were, don't forget to fight the extraterrestrial demons. Don't forget to fight the extraterrestrial demons. Wu Jueqing murmured, even if there was no one in the whole world to help, even if he was abandoned by others. Even if he was isolated and helpless, his body smashed and his spirit destroyed. This heavenly emperor of the purple clouds actually still left behind such last words. Wu Jueqing looked at Chu Yang and said seriously, I, Wu Jueqing, also know how to do that. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, the last words of the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds were, when the celestial imperial court rises, what can the extraterrestrial demons do? However, my heavenly army of 7 million fought for a year until they were at the end of the road. At the moment of life and death, the billions of lives in the celestial imperial court sang and danced in peace, but not a single one of them sent reinforcement. Today, I die. I die a worthy death, with no regrets. I die a worthy death, but my heart remains steadfast. Why is the human heart so cold? Chu Yang said slowly. Wu Jueqing's face revealed an expression of pilgrimage as he listened respectfully. In his fervent eyes, Chu Yang absolutely believed that he saw the blood-soaked figure of the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds killing his enemies back then. After the battle with the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds' heavens fell into the hands of the extraterrestrial demons. The extraterrestrial demons took over the purple cloud's heavens and used it as their base. They marched towards the celestial imperial court and invaded. And the celestial imperial court didn't resist at all, tacitly acknowledging the extraterrestrial demons' position in the purple cloud's heavens. As long as the extraterrestrial demons didn't leave the purple cloud's heavens, the celestial imperial court wouldn't attack them. Only this. Although the battles were endless, they generally lived in peace. When Chu Yang said this, Wu Jueqing suddenly became furious. What do you mean? If the extraterrestrial demons took over the purple cloud's heavens, wouldn't they have a place to rest and recuperate? They are living in peace now because the extraterrestrial demons don't think that they can take over the entire celestial imperial court. But when the time is right, won't they be finished? Chu Yang said, yes. It's precisely because of this that our fates appeared. Wu Jueqing's whole body shook. Dumbfounded, he murmured, Calamity Sword? Chu Yang nodded heavily. Yes. It is the Calamity Sword. In that instant, Wu Jueqing felt like he was in a dream. He actually felt that the world was spinning. He murmured, the Calamity Sword is actually related to the extraterrestrial demons. It's actually like this. It's actually. He hugged his head with both hands and suddenly squatted on the ground in pain. He said hoarsely, go on. Don't miss out a single detail, Chu Yang said solemnly. Back then, two mighty people passed by the celestial imperial court and prophesied that hundreds of thousands of years later, this world would be occupied by the extraterrestrial demons. Therefore, they deliberately left behind something that could restrain the extraterrestrial demons. It was the Calamity Sword. Wu Jueqing sighed deeply. The one who took over the Calamity Sword was Zi Hao, the heavenly emperor of purple clouds. He saw Zi Hao's unyieldingness, but also saw the celestial imperial courts in action. With his ability, he couldn't turn the situation around. Therefore, he chose the celestial imperial court, which had the most vitality, as the location of the Calamity Sword's legacy, to select talents who could resist the extraterrestrial demons. He hoped that one day, the extraterrestrial demons would be expelled and the purple cloud's heavens would be restored. Chu Yang said word by word, you, and the previous generations of tribulations, were born in response to the Calamity Sword and were acknowledged by the Calamity Sword to resist the extraterrestrial demon. This is the Calamity Sword, its master, and the previous generations of tribulations, Chu Yang said softly, the true mission. His voice was very soft, drifting with the wind in the snow and wind. But as he spoke, Wu Jueqing felt a heavy pressure as heavy as the heavens and earth suddenly descend on his shoulders. The true mission. You may believe me if I say that I've read dozens of Pride chapters for this chapter, but I don't know if anyone will believe me if I say that I've written this chapter 4 times. Chapter 1473. Wu Jueqing didn't say anything, but his expression was somewhat pained. Actually, in terms of strength, that mighty figure from the heavenly palace was on par with the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds, Zi Hao. In fact, he was even more powerful than Zi Hao. However, he was restrained by that saint who was greedy for peace and comfort and couldn't go all out. Secondly, even if he really used his strength, he would at most end up like the heavenly emperor of the purple clouds. It wouldn't help the overall situation. On the contrary, it would really damage the strength of the resistance against external aggression. Therefore, he could only choose to bide his time and endure the humiliation, never acting rashly. And it just so happened that two mighty figures from beyond the universe left behind the tribulation sword, leaving a chance of survival for the heavens. That was why this mighty figure was able to make this change. Therefore, this ultimate plan that took a long time could finally be carried out. Chu Yang's voice was very slow. Chapter 718, The Painful Truth. First update. His tone was unusually calm as water. However, his heart was also like Wu Jueqing's. It was a rare moment of calmness. To be honest, for this matter, he really wanted to beat that bastard Xue Leihan up. He even felt that even if he beat him up and cut him into pieces, it might not be enough to relieve the anger in his heart. Chu Yang made a solemn vow in his heart. Once his strength reached that level, He would beat Shui Leihan up no matter what. If one beating wasn't enough, he would beat him up twice, thrice, until his anger was vented. As for whether Shui Leihan became a pig, Buddha, panda, or whatever, it wasn't within Chu Yang's calculations. He could do whatever he wanted. Although Shui Leihan's original intentions were good, kind and noble, this noble plan had caused him and the others to suffer. It had also caused Wu Jueqing and the previous Tribulation Sword Masters to suffer. As for the previous Tribulation Sword Masters, it was even more tragic. Just for these sufferings alone, Chu Yang had to settle the score with Shui Leihan. No one could stop him. Chu Yang cursed in his heart. However, facing Wu Jueqing now, in order to prevent Wu Jueqing from overreacting, Chu Yang could only start from the big picture and tell him about the painful truth of the 7th chapter. First update. He had to say more good things about Shui Leihan as well as the importance and necessity of this plan. In short, in one sentence. No matter what, he had to talk to this old master and get the job done. Otherwise, after wasting half a day of saliva, this master would suddenly lose his temper. He roared, "Boss, I've let you down." Then, with a pop sound, it shook the top of its head and perked up. If that happened, he would really have lost everything. He wouldn't even be able to find a place to cry his heart out. So there was the Tribulation Sword Master, and then there was tribulation. Chu Yang said slowly, other than a few people, all the previous tribulations are now fighting with the extraterrestrial demons in the extraterritorial battlefield. Fight with all your might. Wu Jueqing's entire body trembled. However, he unexpectedly remained silent and didn't open his mouth to speak. Although those seniors have already done their best, in terms of the battle situation, they can only play a role of restraining and harassing. However, it's precisely because they went over in batches and cooperated with the local forces of the Heaven Imperial Court, that's how the Purple Cloud Heavens region became a tug-of-war situation. Of course, another reason for the tug-of-war is also because the extraterrestrial demons themselves don't have full confidence and are afraid of triggering a full-scale counterattack from the Heaven Imperial Court. This is because they don't dare to launch a large-scale invasion. However, in the recent hundreds of thousands of years, because of the rich resources and vast territory of the Purple Cloud Heavens, the extraterrestrial demons have completely escaped the danger of extinction. Their reproduction speed has become faster and faster, and naturally, their population has also increased. There are also the original residents who moved over from their original locations. Previously, they had moved to other places to seek survival, but now, after hearing the news, there are also more and more experts and geniuses coming over to seek refuge. With the speed of their expansion, the final decisive battle is probably not far away. Because if they don't fight, they won't have enough space to survive. Having succeeded once and tasted the fruits of their labor, they definitely won't give up on the quick and effective means of war and invasion. The situation now is very grim. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's extremely grim. Chu Yang took a deep breath. To me, what you said just now is all nonsense. It's completely meaningless. Wu Jueqing said in a low and suppressed voice, "What I want to know is where my brothers are now. Are they at the place you mentioned? Most importantly, are they still alive now? Also, where is my boss? What did he do? What kind of role did he play in the process you mentioned? What I want to know, you didn't mention at all. I don't care whether the Heaven Palace will be invaded or not. I only care about my brothers." Chu Yang said indifferently, "I'm about to mention it. Your brothers are all fighting in the extraterrestrial battlefield now. But whether they're alive or already, I don't know. However, the possibility that they're still alive is very high. Then, what about my boss?" Wu Jueqing asked in a low voice, "Where is he now? Is he okay?" His voice trembled a little. Chu Yang kept talking about tribulation but never mentioned the Tribulation Sword Master. Wu Jueqing had long been suspicious. He asked the latter half of the question almost subconsciously, hoping to get a definite answer from Chu Yang. He had hated him for 40,000 years, but now that he was really about to get definite news, he still didn't want to hear bad news. "Your boss, he, is dead," Chu Yang said slowly. "His soul is gone, his spirit is scattered, His spirit is destroyed. He can't be any more dead. Wu Jueqing lowered his head fiercely. He used so much force that his neck also made a loud cracking sound as he lowered his head. How did he die? How could he die? All my brothers are fine, so how could boss die? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You're lying to me. This isn't real, it can't be real. It was completely possible to tell that Wu Jueqing had said those words through gritted teeth and in a voice that sounded as if his heart had been shattered. It was hoarse and ferocious, full of despair. I'm not lying to you. The tribulation sword itself is a kind of selection. In the past tribulations, those who met the standards had already transcended. However, none of the past tribulation sword masters could meet the true standards of the tribulation sword itself. Chu Yang said, therefore, they could only use themselves as the foundation, or as paving the way. Foundation? Paving the way? What do you mean? Explain it clearly, explain it clearly. Wu Jueqing lowered his head fiercely, his fists clenched tightly. It might be more appropriate to describe it as escorting. Back then, when the tribulation nourished the heavens, the hole that your soul entered was actually the passageway to the extraterrestrial battlefield. Chu Yang said solemnly. Wu Jueqing raised his head abruptly and stared at Chu Yang. As though he was about to cry, he pursed his lips and said, passageway? Yes, it's a passageway. Chu Yang said, after the soul passes through this passageway, at the exit on the other side, it will use the power of reincarnation to rebuild its physical body, raise its cultivation, and fight the extraterrestrial demon. Wu Jueqing trembled slightly, his eyes slowly turning red. It was hard to imagine that an old monster tens of thousands of years old would actually be so moved by the words of a young man. But this was exactly what Wu Jueqing was like right now. However, he clenched his teeth tightly and pursed his lips, refusing to say another word. Only his eyes stared fixedly at Chu Yang's mouth, paying attention to every word that Chu Yang said. However, this passageway is also accompanied by huge risks. Reincarnation rebuilding is no small matter. In the process, there are swords of reincarnation and blades of astral winds. Thousands of destructive powers are added. Ordinary souls can't pass through at all. Usually, the moment they take a step in, they'll be blown away into nothingness. In fact, there have been countless cultivators whose physical bodies died but their primordial spirits didn't perish. Even though they had the opportunity to reach this realm, there has never been a soul that could pass through safely. Chu Yang said calmly, the only way to pass through this passageway is to have extremely strong resentment protecting one's body. Only that kind of hatred that can never be eliminated, that carries with it a grudge that can never be eliminated, can pass through this passageway safely, reach the other side, and rebuild one's physical body. That's how your brothers got there. Chu Yang said softly. Wu Jueqing didn't say anything. Chu Yang didn't say anything either. The two of them stood silently in the wind and snow. The wind and snow whistled. When it hit Chu Yang's face, it immediately bounced off and drifted away without a trace. However, when it hit Wu Jueqing's face, it just stuck to him. Wu Jueqing didn't resist at all. Where's my boss? I mentioned just now that your brothers passed through this way. In fact, there are differences in the strength of the previous tribulation sword masters. However, after unifying the heavens, they will all know their mission. They will also know that their strength is actually not up to par. However, without exception, their brothers are already up to par. Therefore, at that time, they will all be faced with two choices. Chu Yang repeated in a murmur, two diametrically opposite choices. He sighed, his heart aching so much that it felt like it was being torn apart. Wu Jueqing said hoarsely, what choices? How diametrically opposite? The first choice is to sacrifice one's brother to achieve oneself. With this brother's blood, spirit, flesh, and soul as a guide, they will merge into one. With this brother's strong resentment and soul as one, they will open the passageway to the outer realm and send themselves over. They will battle the extraterrestrial demons and leave a good name for themselves. The second choice is to sacrifice themselves and find a way to let this brother pass through the passageway with eternal resentment towards them. Meanwhile, they will die and their soul will scatter, never to be reincarnated. Besides, They will also have to bear a stain that can never be washed away, a stain that will be forever despised by their brothers. Wu Jueqing's mouth opened wide. It was as if his whole person suddenly froze completely. The next moment, his whole person suddenly stiffened. At this moment, the expression in his eyes was really indescribable. Indescribable. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.